This conference will now be recorded.
If we could have everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thanks everyone for attending today. We'll start with the roll. In attendance from the board's perspective, we have Supervisor Walsh, Supervisor Tinkle, Supervisor Banks, and dialing in remotely, we have Supervisor Guy and Supervisor Geppert. We will need a motion to accept the participation virtually for Supervisor Geppert and Supervisor Guy. So moved. I have a motion and a second. Chris, if you'll call the vote, please.
Sure. Mr. Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Geppert?
Yes.
Doesn't count. Sorry, Mr. Geppert. Mr. Tinkle?
Yes.
Ms. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. 3-0.
And also in attendance for the district council, district manager. Do we have district engineer online?
Hey, good afternoon. This is Stephen McGappy with Tetra Tech.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, we will open up with public comments.
We have 3 cards today. I'll take them in the order as received. First would be Warren Davies, Stony Brook.
Good afternoon. I had planned to do this last, but the trees took a higher priority. At the board meeting on March 4th, the agenda item was to recommend Gateway to pursue a traffic enforcement agreement with Lee County and the Lee County Sheriff's Office under section 316.0063B of the Florida Code. That didn't occur. Board comments pursued, and without a vote, 2 things were put out that I'd like to have done. One was to ensure that the traffic signs meet the MUTCD standards, and 2, have the engineer determine how many parking spaces are available on Stony Brook streets if there's no parking signs. First, the law does not require, as part of the request, whether or not the signs meet the federal requirements under the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. But in the traffic agreement that was issued to Stony Brook back in 2006, it states in there, Lee County, through the Lee County Transportation Engineering Department, reviewed the issue of MUTCD, this issue, and recommends approval subject to compliance with the Manual of Uniform Code. And this has been completed. This was done. The signs were erected in the little cubby hole things they have with the sign poles they have, and those don't change. The signs don't change. The height don't change. We had some little height problem after Irma, but Gateway Service staff went out and corrected those and had to replace some signs. As I say, it's not rocket science to do that. To hire an engineer to go out and do tape measure out and measure things, to me, is kind of a waste of money. When all you have to do is have our staff do the same thing, and Lee County has their brochure. These are notes, the stuff I took as we were doing that, and then the manual that has a bunch. This is the stuff that deals with the traffic information. So I really hate to see funding if we don't need it, and it's not needed to pursue this agreement. I think our district attorney needs to make contact, because I think, as I've talked to people, I think things have changed in getting these agreements put together. But the bottom line is, it still has to be approved by the Lee County Commissioners to give jurisdiction for the Lee County Sheriff to enforce the traffic rules as they are in the county, the county rules. The second issue is how many parking places would be available if the signs weren't up. And that's easy to answer. You can say right now, none. Engineering, and we've been pushed over the last year with follow the science. I think you have to follow the engineering. And the engineers from all over the country say 20-foot roadways are not built for parking. Flat out, don't make no difference what it is. They just don't have that. Some local areas, for example, Paseo, they have 20-foot roadways, but they have cutouts where visitors can park in there. And the latest one going up, getting ready to go to phase 3. I've been there a dozen times over here on I'll think of it, but they are putting in spaces for visitors along their roadways. So I think a lot of people recognize 20 foot is not the right width to have parking. You have to have uninstructed movement up and down the roadway. And in the report that Tetra Tech put out in 2009, the original, they addressed that. They addressed the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials and also the Lee County Transportation. And they're saying, Lee County Transportation, that you need a minimum of 28 feet to have a roadway that you can have parking on. This is not a situation in Stony Brook, in Gateway, anywhere. It's all over. The one biggest pusher on this would be the American Association of State Highway People. And their function, because every state transportation director is part of this group. It's run pretty much by the Federal Highway Administration, though it is a private concern. And in doing that, this is how they formulate and make sure that everything is the same as it can be in Florida, as it is in Washington, and as it elsewhere, that all of these different things come together and are consistent with everybody else. So you don't go from Florida to somewhere else and have to change a bunch of rules. The South Trail Fire Department wrote a letter in 2015 quoting their National Fire Protection Association #1 fire code book, the 2012 edition, that said the width of the streets in Stony Brook is a minimum of 20 feet. The width falls below the minimum standard. I actually ended up joining the National Fire Association so I can get some information. And the 2021 version is pretty much the same. In chapter 18, they use a lot of number, but 18.2, fire apparatus access road shall have an unobstructed width of not less than 20 feet. Unobstructed. Can't put nothing out there. You can't have a car parked there. You can't have a truck parked there. You can't have anything blocking that road because their equipment is going to take 20 feet. The other thing that surprised me when I was reading this is multiple access roads. If there's some problems, they feel that there should be a second entryway into places. In Stony Brook, there's only one road that has 2 entrances. And that's Stone Valley Loop. If you can't get into one, you can get in the other. Ivory Stone Loop and Stone Tower Loop, they have loops in the back where you can have 2 ways, but it's about a quarter to a half a mile from Pebblebrook to get to those particular places. And then the same way at Bluestone, you got to go across where they would go either direction.
And 1 minute warning, Warren. Sorry. 5 minutes unless the chair wants to extend the time.
Will the chair give you an extra 5?
I'll give you an extra couple.
Okay, okay, then I'll have to rush. But we don't have that in Stony Brook. So it's vital that we keep the roadways clear for emergency vehicles to get this done.
So, and Warren, let me just ask you a question there. So everything that you're saying is citing different recommendations around keeping those roads obstructed.
Right.
At all times.
Yeah, well.
Unobstructed.
I'm sorry, unobstructed.
Yeah, unobstructed.
Yeah, at all times.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's what they say, right? Yes.
Right. So what do you do with, on a regular basis, landscaping, contractors?
I think I don't know what the Lee County Sheriff does in that respect. Most of these people do put out safety equipment and they're at their vehicles pretty much all the time. If something's
Not really. I mean, if you got
Well, they're still
landscapers
working there.
will
Yeah.
leave their vehicles.
That's
and
true. And that's true. And that's something that may have to be addressed. I don't know. But the key thing is keeping people from parking in places where they shouldn't be parking at times when they shouldn't be there. I'm going to jump ahead on some stuff because the sheriff, I'm not sure what the sheriff's policies are as far as goes with traffic control and stuff. Agencies I know, their policies are to enforce the crash producing violations, speeding, stop signs, et cetera, et cetera. In checking around and checking as best I could, in the 10 years that those signs have been up, there's been one citation issued for parking, and that was in 2019. The only other time any parking stuff was done was when the HOA had it and they were doing some things, and that come to a halt because of Gateway. Back in 2017, April 20th, 2017 was the last time that I could find that this board considered the parking issue at Stony Brook. And in that, they passed a motion passed to leave the signs up as they are in Stony Brook. There was a lot of misinformation. I watched the video, an hour and a half of video. And as I watched it, there's a lot of misinformation coming out, a lot of misinformation that was coming out through a blog in Gateway on a lot of different things, which I think stirred up a lot of people. In the 10 and a half years that Gateway has owned the roads and controlled the roads, they've done nothing to help the enforcement aspect in Stony Brook. When they come out and said, hey, you can't cite these people into your board of directors for fining because it's not a rule, not their rule. So at that time, nothing was done. There's been little spurts here and there over 10 years. To me, Stony Brook is owned, the roadways are, it's very obvious, are owned by Gateway Services. They own them and they control them. And I've got another stack of papers that indicate how many times we've been kind of advised that we control the roads. And I think we need to maintain what we're doing, but we also need to get law enforcement in here. And it's not 24/7. It's at those times that I had mentioned on March 4th in the morning when the kids are going to school. And that's my priority, is getting law enforcement in there from 6 in the morning till 10 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon to 7 in the afternoon. There's 4-hour blocks, which you have to have a deputy out there. That will prevent crashes. And kids are kids. You see those, and a bunch of those kids ride their bikes down to the clubhouse and you don't know where they're going to go. So you need people out there watching that stuff. They're passing school buses. Just those kinds of things that we need someone out there to remind them of the violations. And to change things now, I think would be more problematic than anything. There was a study and the numbers kind of go back and forth. They said 70% wanted parking. Look at that 70%. I attended all kinds of meetings they had on parking, both with the board of directors. They had committees. They had all these different things. I attended all of them. It wasn't the case that this whole 70% wanted unlimited parking. They wanted special consideration for special things that were happening in their area. I think if Stony Brook HOA owned the roads and controlled the roads, that problem would be solved. But we can't solve it. It takes the board of supervisors to solve it. And the best way that I feel it can be solved is to have us file and get the information necessary to allow the sheriff the jurisdiction to go in and enforce traffic laws, the county traffic laws and traffic rules in Stony Brook. And I thank you for the extra time.
Thank you.
I still got 10 minutes if you need time.
And a couple of questions, Warren. What do your covenants say about parking?
Nothing. The only,
You don't have towing between midnight and 6?
No, there was nothing in there. The only thing that even comes close to parking is that it says that they can enforce no parking on their private roadways.
Okay.
And their private roadway goes from Pebblebrook into the clubhouse.
So there's basically
No.
Second thing is that we just went through this. Lee County Sheriff's Office made it perfectly clear to us via their attorney that unless and until they saw that certified engineer's report, they would not have a detail come into our community and do any type of violations unless they knew they had the law standing behind them and they wanted the engineering report. So that engineering report
And
is
that
critical.
is, and that would be critical perhaps. And I think the one area where Stony Brook sticks out away from Gateway Greens, not when you did this, but back when they first did the HOA, the agreement with the HOA back in 2006, when Lennar was in charge, they did this. Someone out and certified this is all, and that's all it was. And they've been enforcing it all along up through, even though I don't agree that they should have been there, but they were enforcing it up through December of 2019. And that's why I think our district's attorney needs to make the contact to find out exactly what we need to do. I hate throwing good money out.
Well, the thing they're going to hit you with is they're going to hit you with MUTCD compliance, which means sign height, sign decoration, sign reflection, and
Yep.
paving markers.
Yep.
Stop signs.
Yep. I agree. And that's
all of that,
all in this.
they're going to hit you with.
Yeah.
We asked that very question about some of these restrictions that we knew we had these similar issues.
Yeah.
And South Trails,
Yes.
nowhere to be found when that issue came up about that 20-foot. Nowhere to be found.
Well,
Because
that's why,
because it's not any requirement.
well,
It's not an enforceable requirement.
well, that's why I went to their book.
Yeah, I think the key is to get quickly a consulting engineering firm in, do the study and sign that contract and get this thing going so that Lee County Sheriff's Office can come in and charge you like they charge us $25,000 a year to do a detail.
And I think before Tony, I feel like he's going to have something. I think we need to have the attorney contact them first and see just exactly what they want. So we don't go out and hire somebody for $10,000 to do this big study. And then all of a sudden we find out, well, we really didn't need to do that. But I think with the attorney contact and get what we need and then follow that avenue.
Yeah, they gave us a deal to give a scope of work, and that's what we did several years ago.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I concur with that. My experience has been with law enforcement agencies. They want an engineer to go out and do a field trip, field visit, ensure that everything is MUTCD compliant. They want it signed off. And statute says the county commission shall consult with the sheriff, and this is part of the consultation with the sheriff. And that's what the city's requiring for Pelican Preserve. The police department's requiring it that we have that performed.
Their concern is their officer comes out, makes an arrest on something that will not hold up because it was not correct.
Yeah, I think it's almost analogous probably, or analogous, however you want to say it, to like the breathalyzer machines and DUIs. They have to be certified, the operator has to be certified, and that machine is subject to examination to make sure it meets the criteria, or else the breathalyzer results go out the window. And in here, if the signage and the traffic control devices, which are the signs, are not compliant, and arguably that citation could be tossed out for that non-compliance. That's probably their concern.
So here's my 2 cents on this whole thing. And I live in Stony Brook, so and actually I'm impartial when it comes to the parking. I can argue both sides. And I've got
I agree with you. I'm the same.
Yeah, and I've got 4 boys, and they're up and down those sidewalks on a consistent basis. So the safety piece is a concern for me. Here's where I have an issue, or at least my concern, and why I want to make sure we do this the right way. For law enforcement to come in and enforce speeding and traffic violations, that's a black and white issue. Either you're going the speed limit or you're not. You stop at a stop sign or you don't. That's very clear. And if we need to go through some type of certification in order to do what we need to do to set that up, that's fine. The parking piece for me becomes gray. If we look at the safety concern, I agree that safety is always a concern. However, there's really no data that suggests that that is an issue, and has been since Stony Brook is I don't know of any incident except for one, maybe, what was it, 7 years ago? There was an EMS vehicle that was trying to get through, and I think it might have been one of the Stone Valley Loop, and they had to turn around and go the other way. That's the only incident that I'm even aware of where there's any issue with emergency vehicles coming in. I don't know of any other incident involving any traffic related issues. Not to say there wasn't, I'm saying I'm not aware of them. The problem that I have is if we're going to set forth a policy that is going to impact this community, it should be the same policy we adhere globally within Gateway. I think we would agree that we don't want to have special policies for each community.
It depends on whether or not your community, most of the roads are private.
Right.
And some of the communities have elected not to spend the money
If it's private,
to have the police
that's
in.
not- That's not
They
enough.
don't care.
Issue.
I think, I agree with what Mr. Tinkle's saying. I disagree with what you're saying.
Well, let me finish.
I think you can't do that.
But the roads are the
for all of
roads.
Gateway.
Well, you should.
Roads are roads,
No,
but
regulations are the regulations regardless of the community.
Gateway Greens owns the roads.
Right. I'm not
owns
talking about private. Private, they do whatever they
that.
want.
That's true. But
But if we own the roads
Yeah.
and we adhere to county regulations, those county regulations are the same in Stony Brook as they are anywhere else.
unless, the only way they can do that is for that HOA to file to give jurisdiction to the sheriff's office.
I'm not,
Yeah.
and I'm excluding
Yeah.
private. We're not talking about
Yeah.
private. I'm saying hold on. I'm talking any roads that are either owned by the county or through Gateway, we adhere to county regulations. And that's the same whether it's in Stony Brook or anywhere else.
The way the county avoids this issue is the engineer. The engineer comes in, determines that it's MUTCD compliant and it meets all the other standards.
And it says
Then
where you can
then
park and where
Then
you
it's
can't
playing
park.
fields level.
Yeah. So that's what I'm looking
It doesn't
for.
make any difference who owns it.
I just need a clear,
It's level.
I need a clear indication on where through standards, regulations, whatever the terminology you want to use, where you can park, where you can't park, so we can have something in a document supported and certified that says, this is what we're going to comply to. This is what law enforcement is going to enforce. Because if you're going to say no parking, it's no parking.
Yeah.
So regardless of, if it's landscaping or something else, because you're going to tell a homeowner that landscaping can park at any time as long as they put a cone out, but a resident can't do the same thing. And the one thing that's never discussed is the impact to your value in your home. I would argue most of the homes in Stony Brook might support 2 cars. So if you want us to enforce a no parking, you're gonna limit your resale on these homes because you're gonna minimize the multifamily potential homeowners that are gonna come in because most people have more than 2 cars. So, and again, I'm completely impartial. I don't care which way we go as long as we have justification to make that stance.
But as I think when you look at all of Gateway and all the HOAs, they're handling it within the HOA.
But you don't have that
And I don't
ability.
know what their policies are outside the sheriff's office, and that would be good.
Yeah.
We don't have a policy because we don't own the roadways. You own the roadways. 10 years ago, you put signs up that said no parking, no street parking. And that means just what it says, no parking.
I think
And
when you get
look at
the engineer,
engineering aspect of it, 20-foot roadways are not anywhere in this country that I can find
Well, there's
where they allow, where they say it's okay to park on that roadway.
I think
They
you will.
do, and if you drive around Stony Brook during the daytime, and I ride all around doing all different kinds of things, there's people parking out there. There's landscaping out there. But again, there's no enforcement, and no one has had a problem with
Right.
that. I think the way it is now, no one has a problem. It can be enforced. To me, the only parking that should be enforced are those people that block sidewalks, those people that park up near a stop sign, those kinds of things that are crash causing problems. And
I think
that's
the
where I
big thing
think the
is-
sheriff's department goes.
The big thing is you get that engineer's report, you're going to find out what your limitations
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
before you sign on the
Mr.
document.
Chairman, we are now 25 minutes into an item that is not on our agenda. Can we get moving, please?
Okay, thank you, Bill. So I think what our approach, I think we still adhere to what we had originally said, which we need to get engineering report and get a clear identification of what needs to be done so we can set forth a policy or put something in play. And as
And
quick as
I
we can
agree
do
with
that,
that.
the better.
If
And if
we're
we can
gonna
do
go
it as cheaply as
If we're gonna
possible.
go the engineer
yeah.
way, then we need to move on getting an engineer in to do that.
It goes fast.
So Chris, let's just make sure that we're pushing forward with what our options are there in order to get that certification so we can move forward.
Certainly. And Warren, I'd like to, because you're referring to those documents, make a copy because we attached it for records. We'll make them in here.
Yeah,
but-
okay, I've got extra.
Okay, great. Let's move on next speaker. Thanks, Warren.
Okay, next person on the agenda for public comment is Rod Senior to speak about trees. Mr. Senior.
I thought trees was last.
Good afternoon, Bob and Bill as well. Bob and Bill, I know this doesn't have a direct financial impact on Pelican Preserve, but a couple of things I want to say today is asking for your support as board members. First of all, from the discussions I've had offline since last Thursday when I was standing here, and it seems to me that the board is moving in the right direction to hopefully move swiftly to replace the 58 or however many trees were taken out to the northern end of Gateway Boulevard. I'm glad you're going.
The door open there.
I'm sorry?
All the cats are out and the dog.
Hey,
Okay,
Bob. Can you mute Bob?
I'll mute it. I'll mute it.
Okay.
Okay. I hope that you move forward with a professional consultant. I think it's important to move swiftly on that. Second point I want to make is the Landscape Advisory Committee. I know there was some comments made last week about the possible recreation of such a committee. I've given it a lot of thought this week since my comments a week ago. My thoughts are that I think it's not going to be too productive, although it's a nice political thing to do to get grassroots input. The problem is you've got 6 people around a table with 6 different subjective opinions about whether he or she likes certain trees and bushes and shrubs. It wasn't very productive, and in the end we had to pack it in. It was spinning wheels. My better advice hopefully will be to hire a professional who directly advises the board. I think it's a better way to go than trying to create a residence committee. Final point about the southern end of Gateway Boulevard and the trees that have been removed by Lee County. Now, Tony, I've studied the interlocal agreement, and now you love that agreement that you negotiated with John Fredemus. And, you know, the trees are regarded as an improvement, as you know. The county does have the legal right to remove those trees if they're an impediment to what they're trying to do, which is building a roundabout at Commerce. So they do have the right, but they have the right also to replace as well. In the spirit of cooperation, let's try, would you please give some thought to letting Lee County DOT know that we're spending a ton of money, or hopefully you will be spending a ton of money soon to replace those 58 trees. And you're doing it because you want to prevent the pavement and the sidewalk from lifting because of the root system. And therefore, wouldn't it be a good idea to say to the county, we're doing our bit. How about you doing your bit to look after the trees at the southern end? Don't just crudely come in and hack them down. They belong to us, not the county. And I think there needs to be a goodwill relationship here, working both ways. And it's important not just for Commerce, but with Griffin coming up as well, and that ridiculous roundabout, but that's another subject. But if they go forth with that, there's 34 more of them coming out. And I think this is the time to encourage Lee County to do the right thing and either give us a goodwill dollar replacement gesture, or even replace the trees themselves with ones that don't prevent the line of sight, like the big overhang that the live oaks have. And the palm trees, you can get professional advice from you, hopefully from your new consultant. By the way, when I was on the board, Tony, there was $130,000 residual impact fee fund, still money in the bank. And I think it was regarded or titled as park. Is that money being spent, or is it still sitting there?
I don't know. You have to ask.
It's still there. There's about, I think, $270,000.
Is it
It's Parks and Recreation.
Is it reasonable to spend some of that money on tree replacement?
We have to ask Lee County if that's an acceptable utilization, because they have a separate road impact fee. They probably also, because they have parks impact fee, water impact fee, sewer impact fee. And if it's not considered part of the park and recreation impact facilities impact fee, it cannot be utilized for that.
Don't you think they'd be kind of a bit flexible considering what they're just be hacking down our trees?
The statute doesn't allow, the Florida statutes and the case law does not allow it to be flexible.
Okay, thanks.
Unfortunately.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Senior, for staying within the 5 minutes. Appreciate your comments. Last, we have Kathleen Flaherty, Stony Brook Landscaping.
Happy April Fool's Day. Okay, I will be short and sweet. I know we have a landscaper, mainscape still, and somehow they don't seem to be doing their job. If you go down to the median at Daniels and Gateway, it looks like they're not doing any maintenance. It looks terrible in several areas around on Gateway. And that's all I have to say. I think somebody needs
Not on Daniels, but on Gateway Greens, or
On
Gateway Boulevard.
on Gateway Boulevard. Yes, that median that's on Gateway Boulevard, right. But even if you go down along the side of Gateway, even on Griffin, they're just not doing what they're supposed to do.
Not watering or,
Not any maintenance, cutting the shrubs properly, leaving all kinds of debris. I mean,
we have, who's supervising them, checking them to verify that they're complying with the contract?
We have 3 Public Works, and Brian may want to comment on that, but Jim
Just have them
Kennedy's a
go out and
recent
check
hire.
and see if it's not being done, and send them a letter and tell them to do it.
yeah, because
think
on
he's been
the
working with
side
them.
on Daniels, if you're going towards, on Gateway going towards Daniels on your right, all those bushes look like they're dying.
Can I
Like
have
they're not being taken care of.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
Brian's got something, maybe.
Hold on just a
I
second,
just,
Brian.
I want, my thing is, I just want to make sure it's in the contract before I go jump on somebody.
So Flavia had a.
So I just want to go in. About 3 weeks ago, I actually met with Freddie and Jim. I had the same concerns in regard to Griffin, and we went out in the field and I literally pointed out the same issues that I was complaining about 8 months ago. Within a few days or so, they went to Griffin and took care of it. However, it feels to me like that they went and took care of everything on that end, but like right in front of the district office, like the weeds in the Bahia, it's really bad. And in regards to to Gateway Boulevard, I did see Freddie today with Jim over there. And that's what I was trying to mention at the last meeting. All of that sod and all of those dead bushes behind the monument, in front of the monument, they all died because of the irrigation. So all that at least removal needs to be done. And that's what I was cautioning about the replacement of the tree. So I know they were working on it, but I guess Brian can chime in if there's anything else.
I think there's also been some disease for the past 2 years, correct?
We had an issue where they had to shut that irrigation water off for 8 weeks.
For what?
The roundabout, when they put that irrigation in there, it was shut off for almost 6 to 8 weeks. And we were not going to do anything down there until they had it back up and running. Jim's been down there with Mainscape. We got a plan to redo at the intersection of Daniels and Gateway Boulevard around both monuments and in the center. That's probably happening in the next couple of weeks. But we were kind of holding off because I wasn't going to do anything down there.
So there was no water.
I had no water supply. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to waste this money. And plus we took the monument out there a while back, the Flavia request. It has been removed in the middle. So that was one of the things we had to get out of there before we do it. You're getting ready to plant because it's in April now. So you're getting closer. There's only certain times you can plant certain things. What I've been told by Jim and Al. So it's getting that time. They're going to start replanting all that because we're also going to do up and down Gateway Boulevard from Griffin to basically the roundabout where we did all the bull noses. Now that that is all completed, we can start putting plants and flowers back into there.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good opportunity for us to maybe communicate that. We can post some on our Facebook page just periodically on, I think, what's going on with the roundabout. You'll notice that the median, may have hit a dry patch just because the irrigation shut off, so they can do that. And then our plan is this. So maybe just some regular updates when we see things that are.
We can do that because at the roundabout, they ripped out a lot of irrigation out on the Saucy Meatball side. Right construction is supposed to have that put back far as the sod and what's up to par, then Mainscape's coming back in. Kenny got to go down, put a 12 to 2 inch to basically put the irrigation back because it was all ripped out during the construction move.
Okay.
It's been a nightmare down here since the last 4 months, but or at least I can see the light in the tunnel as far as all the utilities being moved. Now that's pretty much taken care of. Now we can start back with the landscaping aspects of it.
Okay.
I'm talking about the median right at the end.
Correct.
Okay,
It will be done in the next couple of weeks. It's been there designing with Freddie.
all right. Thank you.
Okay.
And happy Easter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Same to you. Okay, is that it, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No
All right, so
more.
moving on, we will start with our staff reports, district council.
Just a couple of items, just briefly, to be able to wrap up without having to constantly bring this back to the board. On the ADT small claims action, we are going back and forth on the language of a settlement and agreement and release. And the board previously authorized Laura to appear at the small claims date, which is typically mediation authorized mediation discussions, hopefully settlement. And what I'd like to do is, if the board should today authorize Laura and or Chris executing any settlement agreement acceptable to council for payment to Gateway of the sum of $5,580. And if we can get court costs, filing fee and summons, put all that in there, just so we don't have, if we can work this out in the next 2 weeks, get that signed up and get the check and move on.
This was on that ADT
The,
debacle.
yeah, paying and no services.
So
Yeah,
we
I'd make that motion.
have a second.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Chris, if you'll call.
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Mr. Geppert,
He's off.
That means he's offline.
I see him smiling.
There we
He's
go.
on.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Guy,
Yes.
Mr. Tinkle.
Yes.
Mrs. Walsh. Motion passes unanimously.
Just briefly, also working with Chris on the SRF loan amendment for the additional funds for the Lake Bank Restoration Program. Sent the opinion letter out today about the validity of that. And we're waiting for the final form of that agreement, but the comments, the draft I saw was fine. So it shouldn't be any real issue. Draft, work with Steve Adamczyk, have a revised draft. I think I mentioned last week also of the agreement in Pelican Reserve. We need to get that finalized and approved by PPCA, Lennar, and the district. We're having that, Chris coordinated the meeting next on the 5th with all the stakeholders.
Work group. Yes, sir.
5th or 7th, is it the 7th?
I believe it's the 7th.
The 7th.
I hope it's,
The 7th.
I hope it's the 7th.
All the stakeholders. Continuing to review and digging deeper into some records involving Santa Luz to be able to assist Leslie on that issue. And that's still a work in progress. And I still haven't heard back from the county. I keep bugging them about the FPL easement, trying to get a meeting with Lennar and the county on that issue. But they're having some staff turnovers there, as I understand it also. And John Ferdima has retired. And John was always good to work with at the county.
Well, they should have some availability because I don't think they're building a whole lot right now.
Who's his replacement?
I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch of names on these emails, and then it's people are shifting around at the county. I mean, it's just interesting, to say the least. I've not heard. Nothing else to report.
And is any updates from the emergency road? Is there any?
Oh, that's the meeting next week.
That's the
Okay,
meeting
all
we was talking about.
That's the, and I think once we get the
On the
agreement, I think you saw the revised agreement, Ed. I think I sent that to you.
Yeah. Have we made a motion to approve that agreement? We were
Yes.
talking about, we did do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we're waiting to get it approved by PPCA and also Lennar because Lennar will not sign the DRI application until the agreement's approved. So, but we are moving forward with the surveying and preliminary engineering and permitting the other pieces. As you know, Mr. Tink, we've had some discussions with the engineer.
Yeah, we may end up, depending upon if there are any other extensive changes to the form of the agreement, bring it back to the board just so the board's fully aware of what's in that agreement and what the commitments are. But I think it's pretty straightforward along the lines of what the board indicated.
Okay, great. Thank you. Moving on, district engineer,
Oh,
Steve.
one other, I apologize. On meter sys, we're having a follow-up status call on Monday with that.
Okay, now Stephen, engineering.
Hey, good afternoon, Stephen Agapi, Tetra Tech. We don't have anything on the agenda, but I do have a quick update on the aerators. We were out there on Monday, myself and our electrical engineer, and we completed our review of the aerators that are in question. We'll have a report done before the next board meeting, but I don't think it'll be done by Tuesday when the agenda items are due. Is there any way that I can put a placeholder in there and then bring forth the PowerPoint and a report for the next meeting?
Yeah, we'll put a placeholder in.
Okay, perfect.
I think it may also be, I think PPAC would probably want to see that ahead of time, Bob.
Of course. Yeah, we can do that. As soon as it's done, we'll send it over to everyone that is involved.
Yeah, Doug is well aware of where we stand.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. Any questions or feedback for engineering? Test check. Okay.
I know Phil Measy was in the audit area. He's back.
Yeah, I see.
I'm here.
Phil, are you good?
I'm good.
Thank you. Okay, district manager report.
Sure, and that's in front of you. The SRF's moving along we're just waiting for the final agreement. It's all approved by the board. And I have some information on property appraisal and update of our inventory. We're involving PPAC with this. And the reason it's important, if we do get involved with a situation with FEMA or a disaster, if you have an item that your insurance company refuses to pay, they will step in to help compensate for the loss. However, if that is not on your insured list, they will back right away from it and there is not eligible. So we'll be going through a full-blown update of the property schedule, including all our lift stations, above ground assets, building, and all those recent acquisitions in Pelican. And we'll have some staff from Asset Works out there, and we anticipate it's going to take a full day, day and a half, and involve our staff and the PPAC folks.
John Gregg is still heading that up for PPAC, Chris?
Yes, sir. I sent it over to him, invited to the meeting,
okay.
and we'll talk.
He's the right guy.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that at the PPAC meeting next week also.
If I may, Chris mentioned one of my districts put a reimbursement in for FEMA right after Irma. 2.5 years later, they still do not have the money, and it's about $300,000. And it was approved at the state level, but kicked out at the federal level. And so they've had to hire a firm to try to, I mean, it's just, so if you don't have, like Chris said, everything following the manual, and they have a special manual now, then it's painful, and put it that way.
Yeah, and roundabout Commerce Lakes, I do have the updated, if anyone like a copy of it, project schedule and the most recent, every other week, there's a report out there in the field. Our staff participates, contractors, all parties are involved. Was issues with the irrigation. They just went in there and tore it all out of the ground. How that happens, I will say that Brian got in front of it because with the Griffin Road, we sat down with Tetra Tech and went over, we're incorporating all our plans, and we're just going to include that in the project bid.
Yeah, a little bit different in the locations.
So
don't tear out the whole community, you do that.
Well, he did, and right now things are quiet on the utility side. It's more paving, but the next 3 weeks, everything's going to shift over to the other side of the road. Then they'll be hooking in the force mains, the water lines, and the irrigation lines. So you'll see a big shift right now from the utility side. There's a bit of a lull in the action. And we do have 90% plans complete for the Griffin Drive intersection, and we're working on our summer project, which is the alternate force main, which will take about 80% of the utility work out of that project. It'll be done before the county comes in and starts working there. Continue to do outreach with the HOAs, also scheduled on the 14th. We'll be going to Pinecrest and meet with those folks, and they've all been very receptive to a president's council, and I've been getting a lot of good feedback from it, and they really appreciate us being there.
Can you do me a favor? Can you get us a list of the HOA boards just so we can have it? I think it'd be nice to have the board representatives for each of the HOAs.
Sure, and I've been working to get the presidents and also their CAMs, and those shift so often. You know,
and that's a great thing. I'm glad you mentioned CAMs. So CAMs and management company would also be nice to have in a kind of master.
Yeah, and working through them, so that is nice. Matarita 4, as soon as we get things straightened out, it'll move forward. Looking ahead, the consultants will be here to do the presentation of the final draft utility study. We'll be getting feedback from the board on where they want to go with the rates to pay for projects. Also, we've done a capital transfer from the enterprise fund to the general fund and formalizing that, and also implementation and development of a stormwater utility. So all those will be coming forward with that presentation. And of course, the action will follow the budget development, budget approvals, and any rate case that's changed will be put in effect at the same time as the next budget, October 1st. So, and we will have those capital projects and the dollar impact of folks' utility bills to pay for the principal and interest on those. Also, if we go ahead with the follow, that's for the design and permitting, which is about a year process. If we go ahead and build those, and borrow the money from SRF, which is available, we will have to have another bond validation, just like we did for the Lake Bank. Tony and I had some discussions on that. And again, after April 15th, when some of the decisions are made how to move forward, because that is probably a 6 to 8 month process from start to finish. So to have that ready for January of 2022 to get the financing.
So we're experienced now.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a little simpler on the utility side than it was on the general fund.
Should be a
side.
lot simpler. It's just the court schedules, now everything's Zoom hearing.
And the school board's going to come in. This is standard conveyance of assets. The only thing is they've asked us to take over the landscaping and streetlights at their roundabout. And my staff recommendation will be no, but there'll be someone here from Johnson Engineering, the school board, making a plea for you to take their streetlights, which have been turned off because of the amount of light they throw into Hampton Park and Magnolia Lake. So instead of doing something about it, they've shut them off and they're going to come ask us to take their problem over for them because the light fixtures they have there cannot be shielded.
I just have one on that. In Magnolia Lakes, we have only one resident out of the entire adjacent property that has an issue. And to be honest, I didn't understand why the school would give in and have the lights shut off at 8 o'clock when we're just giving a false sense of it's going to be okay, because here comes August, it's going to be on until 11 o'clock. I reached out with the school and it says 11 o'clock is the time. So to me, it's get accustomed to it now because it's not going to change.
Buy a BB gun.
And we're still working with FPL consent agreement. They're behind with everybody in the county, everybody in the region, hopefully in the next week or two, because we really need that consent agreement to move forward with that irrigation line and that wastewater force main. And I did a field recon with Russ on commercial properties for an update of the assessment methodology, just so we can deliver the new updated rule. And that should be done in the next week or two. We're shooting to have that complete them for Mark by the middle of April.
But you indicated that those other fees associated with utilities, those are with the other consultant. I want to make sure that all of our fees that were generated years ago are brought up to date, because they have got to have changed with the amount of additional infrastructure we put in. The numbers have got to be significantly different. And with, I'm going to guess we've got what, 1,000 plus ERUs yet to be built. Where are we giving it away? Pay.
We did increase the connection fee with the last rate study. I could look at that. We did not include that in the
look at connection fees, look at availability fees.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you know, in order to, if the connection fees are utilized for expansion or capital improvements attributable to new units, then we need to have the numbers attributable to that capital improvement plan.
Right.
So I don't know if Raftellus has, or if we have that information.
Something to look at.
Okay.
We need to look
Yeah,
at.
we'll address that. Then I'll make sure that we have that information at the meeting.
Item number 6, may we have the name of the planner that's been hired to amend the DRI?
Yes, sir. That is Whole Montes, and they are also working with the attorney, Steve Ademzik, for Pelican Preserve. And the draft application is put together, and we're just waiting on the signatures, which we need that Lennar agreement, and that DRI application will be submitted.
Thank you.
Questions?
Yes.
You done, Chris?
Yes.
A question. Hate to even bring this up. The new construction of the apartment. They're getting close, I'm guessing.
They are. They submitted a final set of plans to us and to Tetra Tech for review. There was very modest changes. We had a couple things we asked them to move around. They've taken care of that. We don't have any issues. They have 2 things going on over there. One, their core permit expired, which there's no significant issues with that, but it's time consuming.
Well, whatever the issue is the word is on the street that construction is real and it's going to happen. A lot of people thought that it was just going to go away.
Well, I think it's going to be delayed, just like most buildings. Construction is being delayed right now.
Well,
Just
I'll
with
tell you what,
construction costs and everything else.
right now, what do you call it? Places to live and buy around here are going like hotcakes. So anybody that's delaying is crazier than a dick.
Like, they're not building over here anymore. That they've shut down because construction costs are too high.
COVID?
No, material costs.
No.
window delays, windows like PB,
Well,
pin-
everything from wood
yeah,
to,
Pella, and the other last 14 weeks from date of order. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they've got a lot of site work to do first, but my reason for bringing it up is, has there been any discussion whatsoever of them and the county in that intersection at the same time? That is going to be chaos. Are they going to be required? Because I can see, we'll be getting phone calls. If we like the tree issue, we'll love this one. If they come out by the bank and exit out onto that little short road.
Is there
That-
any point or?
is there any connection?
Oh, yeah, they actually the
Have a-
parking lot behind the bank is a platted thoroughfare for that
I
property.
know it. I know it.
That
Oh,
is
And
The
my
through-
guess
the-
is,
okay,
and
I
I
see.
guess that will be the way they ingress and egress for construction.
correct. You can look at the plans and see that.
They'll expect a room full when that happens.
And they have not submitted any building plans. And right now, the lull seems to be them selecting a product to put in there. They have some standard ones that company uses, but that may be impacted by that availability of materials. They may be looking for alternates.
Hey, Chris, just on that point, if I may, the road they come on, out onto the north end,
Yes.
if they're going to use that for the construction road, is that a district road? I believe it is.
It's 106.
And because if you recall, when they do their application with the county, with the district for stormwater and for drainage and for planting, everything else and utilities, if they're going to use district roads for construction access, they need to do that road impact analysis and post a bond in case they damage or the district road. I don't know if we had thought, if that had been thought of or reviewed before.
Yeah, that's included in the permit criteria manual.
Right. So if I don't recall seeing that in the materials to date.
No, I have not either because it wasn't designated. We were looking at the site plans and not a
Right.
construction
Same here. I
plan
just thought of
yet.
that now. I agree.
I don't know any other way they can get in. It's the only way they can get into that site. They
So I
haven't
think
got any other place.
we just may want to make a note to make sure they do that before it comes to the board for the approval.
And,
I just thought of it now myself. Quite
and
frankly.
remember that whole building site too, that 1 acre along Griffin Boulevard is reserved and is not included in that development plan. So whether it's future expansion or whether they're going to sell it for commercial, we don't know.
We don't know yet. Yeah. Third same thing. Okay. And then the other one is have we ever settled and received compensation back from Comcast vendor for the damage?
But you must have been listening in on Chris and I's phone call yesterday morning.
Well,
We talked about that.
they're getting done, and my list of issues I gave them the other day, and I said, I'm tired of this. This isn't, you think it's going to go away by silence? It ain't gonna happen. So I wanted to add that to the list if indeed it has not been done. Have we not received compensation from their insurance carrier?
No, sir, we haven't. And they actually bounced it around because it came out when we pressed them that their reply was from the original insurance carrier. There was no policy in effect at that time.
And while I've heard from Comcast themselves,
Yeah.
my point of contact on the construction, that there indeed was one because they had to have that to get the notice to proceed from Comcast.
And they switched carriers and we are now dealing with a different carrier. So a month ago, it all started anew with the new group. And
Was this with Night Broadband or was
Yes.
this?
but Night was the original and it was the
And they
carrier.
subbed it.
The St. Martin cable, I think.
St. Martin Cable.
And yeah, Chris and I talked about Chris doing a little follow-up nudge to them saying,
Now, are you second behind us on receipt of payment?
oh, we're gonna be, the district's gonna be first.
We're already there. So we're first.
So that,
We might be there first and second and you're third.
Chris started early.
Yeah, we started this 7 months ago.
Yeah, that's right. So no, Chris is in the game.
Okay, so what is the update is
Is that Chris was gonna nudge him a bit if we
The
don't get a
issue was, I
resolution.
want to make sure that at our end of the deal, that the damage that was not paid for as a result of the Comcast construction just doesn't disappear.
Right.
Oh, no, it's not disappearing.
So-
Chris, again, is gonna follow up and basically say, if y'all don't come to the table, provide the reimbursement, and go to the board, get authorization to file. It's a county court action in the district's case.
all right, anything else for Chris? Okay, Laura? Business manager report.
Tony already talked about the first item on my report, which was the ADT with the Stony Brook update. So thank you for the authorization to go ahead and work with him to hopefully finally get this resolved. My second item is the internet updates. We're fully switched over. We have 2 bills now for internet, or we will shortly. So we have Comcast at the pool and just the CenturyLink bill here. So that's going to save us, I think it was a little over $700 a month we'll be saving by getting rid of all of that. So we should be getting our final bill for this building from Comcast, and I'll be canceling the CenturyLink bill this week for the pool because General B got up there and got them all switched over, and I wanted to make sure everything was working before I got rid of the CenturyLink, so they're good to go. The budget workshops, we have 6 meetings left between now and July 15th, so I'd like to get the 5 budget workshops done. Kenny and I spoke this morning, and he is planning to do the 400 or 301 next week, or next meeting on the 15th, and possibly both, depending on how many items he has, but for sure one. So plan on that, we'll have a little workshop for the utility side. And then I didn't have that in my HR updates because I was just in a hurry to get to my CDM training class. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to take that certified district manager training. I had that last week. That was 4 days of, I made a lot of friends, made a lot of contacts and really good networking. I think we learned more from each other than we did from the material that we were given. And the material was basically given to us to spark conversations amongst ourselves to learn and bounce things off each other. So I have a list of 19 contacts that I made in that class that I can reach out to ask questions. So it was very, very helpful. Thank you.
Now, when do you have to take a test or something?
That's what I was just going to get to. My next step is I need to do a project, and I have to submit what that project is by the 1st of July, and then I have to deliver the results of the project by November 1st. I have an idea in mind, and I don't want to say anything because it's something that's coming up at one of the board meetings, and I don't want to influence anything. So I have an idea of something that I'd like to do.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure there's plenty of projects.
Yeah, I have several. I talked to
You
Chris.
shouldn't have any problem there.
There's several that I want to do that I have in mind. So I have a backup just in case.
I think supervision of the Stony Brook traffic deal.
No.
That
It's
would
supposed
be
to
a
be
good
something
one.
that benefits the district. So that would be a little too specific. It's just Stony Brook. So yeah. And I don't have that kind of time.
You're not getting a cupcake here. No way. No cupcake.
The last thing I have is my HR update. I finished proofreading the revised handbook that I worked with Paychex to get done. My cross-reference between our current handbook and the handbook they gave me to ensure that all of the important things that we stress that don't come in a standard handbook were included in the new handbook. I standardized all the verbiage so that it didn't flip-flop between team member, employee, supervisor, manager, all that. I standardized all of that, so I'm ready to ship that off to you. And
Redlined, I hope, right?
it came, no, there was no red line because they gave me a clean cut. It came from theirs.
If you can give it to me in a Word format, I can do a compare.
Yeah, I can do that.
That's great.
That's how I got it, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, I'll make sure. I'm gonna send that off to you and Suzanne probably early next week. I just want to give it one more look over. So I think it's good. We bounced a lot of stuff off each other in the CDM class last week too, about handbooks and policies and things like that. So it was very helpful. My last thing, I know I listened to the board meeting since I wasn't able to attend a lot of it since I was in class. And I know you had talked about that we had gotten some applications for the HR thing. I also had reached out to Paychex since we're using them right now for some very general HR functions, but they do have the next level up would get us an HR generalist. And the only thing that they don't have that was on the list from you and Suzanne was there would not be a person
on site
here.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the only difference. They can provide everything else. They will help us do training. They will actually do the training. They will help us identify what kind of training we need. They would be accessible to all of the management. If we were having employee issues, any of the managers can contact them to ask questions. I would just have to tell them, yes, it's okay for this person to call you, and then they would be on a list, and they could contact them. It would only cost us another about $7,000 more than we're paying right now for the limited HR services that we're getting from Paychex. And it actually takes all of our current payroll services, the weekly payroll processing, lumps it all into one fee, and they kind of give it to us as a package.
Yeah.
So it actually saves us a little bit of money on our payroll processing as well.
And I think it's something we should consider as maybe a secondary plan or just as an alternative solution. Now, the benefit of that is it's a lower cost. This is really kind of a pilot for us to see if, because I think the business case is there. We need HR representation in a district or in an organization our size and with the number of employees. We have to have something.
There's a hole there, and I completely agree. And Jonelle is my contact there, and she is more than happy to meet with you to answer any questions.
But For me personally, it would be a secondary solution because I do think ideally we would have someone on site at, at some frequency. What that frequency is, I don't know. But the problem we have is you got nowhere to put them.
And then, well, my
So-
other concern with the on-site too is that's very limited, where this person will be available anytime. We can call them whenever.
Right.
If something came up.
So it's
we
just
look at
something for us to
break room.
consider. What I would say is let's continue with looking at, let's see what our applicant pool looks like.
Sure.
If we get some viable solutions there, and then when it comes to making a decision, I think we would weigh in, a local on-site resource versus a virtual
Sure.
support structure. So,
Okay.
uh,
Just trying to be fiscally
yeah, no,
responsible.
completely understand, and I think it's great because we should be looking at multiple options for our solutions anyway.
Okay.
And then since you were listening in, did you?
Yeah, I heard I got elected PR person.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
And what my
That's what I get
expectation,
for not being
you
here,
know,
right?
and a great example would be, again, like the irrigation component
Mhm.
with the roundabout. People want to know more what's happening with the roundabout. And I
Sure.
think we have been putting some stuff out there, but Kathleen wouldn't have come in today had we have put something out that as part of the the construction, irrigation lines have been shut off, which may impact some landscaping.
Mhm.
So it's almost like just bear with us while we're going through construction, but that alone would have probably, saved it. So
Sure.
again, it's not your fault, but we need to get in front of
Mhm.
these things. So,
Yep.
so
And
I would say
Flavia-
look at your capacity.
Sure. I don't think it's going to take that much of my time.
I don't
to be
either.
honest. And Flavia and I met on Monday and had some discussions about the Facebook page, and I'm kind of revamping our Facebook page in the background. And I also spoke with Kenny and Brian, and we're going to get together like when they're getting ready to start to do projects to give me some information so that I can put.
We
put
should
stuff
always be,
together and put it
for
out
every
there.
project, there should be a conversation. Okay, what's our PR and communication strategy?
Yep.
What requires what's sensitivity? And then within that PR, I think from a staff perspective, we need to continue to push the code red capability as much as possible.
Is code red just for emergencies? or
It's
is
not.
that just
There's
for
two, from what I
notification?
understand, there's,
I think Leslie can be
Yeah.
better explaining, but there's two ways.
okay,
Is it
well,
just
we'll,
about- okay.
Leslie, are you presenting today? Okay, well, just take a second during that presentation and just give us an update on that capability. But, so yeah, congratulations. And I think it'll
I'll try to be here for every board
yeah.
meeting.
Well,
from now on then.
what I think is, yeah, that's what you get for,
That'll teach you.
but I think it'll take a village there, like whether it's your direct responsibility or whether it's kind of shared through staff, it's fine. But
Yeah.
we need one point of contact to make sure that there's a plan in place and that we're
I
doing what we
plan
need
to
to.
share the wealth. And the ironic part of it was, the day that all that, the main stuff with the tree things were going on, we were actually discussing PR.
Yeah.
So. in
Well,
class.
we're trying to get HR off your plate, so naturally,
HR,
naturally you're gonna have a hole, so we can
Yeah,
fill that
yeah,
void
yeah.
with PR and communication.
Once
So,
their pours a vacuum.
yeah,
you know?
okay.
How many hits do we have on our website? anymore?
Barely any.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
The-
We're gonna
the-
put all
I
this
would
in
say
People don't,
there.
probably
people don't go to
90
websites anymore.
90% of the hits on the website are to pay bill, pay my bill, pay my bill, pay my bill.
And what
then-
if-
We've tried it at the HOA, and granted, it's only 1,400. They won't read it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
one of the things I think we should,
plan to email out, because I have Georgia and Julie maintain lists of like all of the CAMs and all the HOAs and the we'll send a mass
If you,
email out to them.
you want to get their
as well.
attention, you just take a backhoe out to wherever you're going to do something.
And then it's-
Are we
Put a
gonna-
hole in the ground and they come out of the woodwork.
but Laura, what I would like to do is we need to really
They
look
don't
at
care.
what avenues we're updating.
Mhm.
I mean, we have a very diverse population here from our demographics. So, I mean, Facebook is one, but you also have a lot of people looking at Instagram and Twitter. Not to say that's what we need to do, but like the next door site, a lot of people are on that site. So
Mhm.
I think the website, people are just they don't naturally go to websites anymore
Right.
for their information.
The nice thing about the Facebook page is that I have, the comments are turned off. Well, people can comment all they want, but no one's gonna see it except for us. So, and Flavia and I had talked about Nextdoor, and I did do some research. There's no way to automatically block comments on anything that we would post on Nextdoor. So if I forget to tick the little box, it could blow up.
Yeah.
So then the thing with Facebook is just, it's a setting right in our profile saying, nope, no
And-
comments.
Well, we do have to manage risk, but at the same time, we can't stop information from
Right.
being communicated but so I understand what you're saying. So if we're doing a better job at communicating,
Yep.
then, and giving people an avenue to provide feedback, that we just need to be very clear on how they do that. So,
Oh, I think it's a little bit more than that. Don't we have to record it?
If we allow comments on the page, there's some, we have to
Requirements of
record
the
things in
meeting.
case somebody posts something and we get in trouble, because we had discussions about that in class last week. There's some software packages that are not cheap that you can purchase that'll automatically just take snapshots in case somebody does a drunk 2 a.m. posting where they're ranting and then they go, oh my gosh, and they take it off before we get in the morning. We would still be able to record it because people are going to see it.
No, I'm fine with that. I mean, I think our current approach is fine. My point is just, people need an avenue. We just need to
Right.
direct them to where's the appropriate place for feedback.
We direct them to the customer care.
Yeah,
email.
that's great.
So,
Okay. All right. Anything else?
I do not.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
And I would like to mention with the certified district manager class that she took, FASD also offers a certified district official class for board members at their meeting in May in Orlando. It's over a 3-day period, and they touch on everything from public relations, public information.
Now, this is CDD,
uh,
not special district.
Governmental bodies generally.
Governmental bodies generally, but it covers a lot, and they'll have the law firm for the Florida Association there talking about legal aspects, insurance people. I mean, they touch on every facet of being a board member, and most of the people that go there that get elected to the boards find it very valuable. It's not expensive to
Tony,
attend it.
I like that concept, because one thing that we should be doing as a board is continuing to learn and grow. And, I'm sure there's a lot that we don't know, and some probably know more than others. If we were to attend something like that as a board, I mean, I know there's sunshine law and things of that nature, but
You could not interact, and we could make sure that, and I'm sure Lewis Longman Walker, that's a law firm that knows, I know those guys, Bob Diefendorfer, I know Lewis Longman Walker.
But it would,
I know Terry Lewis.
we
I know
wouldn't have
Bob
any problem.
Diefendorfer.
Let's say if we all said, hey, we all want to go. We could do that as long as we followed,
Yeah, that's my record. I mean, I'll double check for that. As long as you don't interact at all, and that's the difficulty. I don't know if they have, is it in
Well,
person or remote?
we can't talk about district business. I mean,
Correct.
so
Well,
this is why I have a little
here's
bit of
your
an issue.
problem. You can't bring up in a general conversation with the other four sitting there a district issue.
Correct.
That's your problem.
So
everything has to be out of the meetings.
Is it like a webinar or?
It's in person this year so far.
Where is it and when?
Orlando, middle of May. I'll send you out the agenda.
Yeah, send it out.
Whereabouts in Orlando?
One of the iDrive hotels, I think it's the Rosin, one of the smaller Rosins.
What I can do is contact whoever the presenter is for Lewis Longman Walker and just chat with them about what protocols they have in place.
Other people do it.
They have
How
to.
do they, I mean, we're not the first ones that's ever.
That's
done
right.
this.
So I'm sure that they have some caveats that they provide.
Yeah.
Again, I've known those guys for years.
If you use common sense, I think it's perfectly fine.
But I'll,
But,
yeah,
okay,
if
but
you
that's a
can
good point. Thanks
if
for
you can send me the
bringing that.
brochure, Chris, or the material.
Sure.
So I can find out who the presenter is.
Okay, Leslie, you're up.
Leslie Victoria, Utility Billing Manager. I'm just providing some updates on overall utility billing customer service. San Luis, I'm still working with Tony to give me the green light on that lien process for all 11 properties, I believe. AMI metering, we are holding steady at 99 reporting totals. That does not include ETRs and equipment that needs to be recalibrated. So that's still some workload there that our staff's having to deal with. Demo of new software. I am demoing and obtaining pricing comps for utility billing software, asset management and work order system.
Okay.
And Code Red, just because we've been on it 3 years, I'm just pricing out, see how it compares to other services.
Okay.
So that's currently underway now. Right now, we do track work orders by staff, by month, by area and department, but it's not mobile and we don't have paperless concept in place.
Okay.
So we're really.
And from a, what's the word I'm looking for? From a ticketing type system, that would be something that we could use all across all of our business units, regardless, it's not just utilities.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. And with Code Red, just to explain a little bit about that, it's general and emergency. It's all notifications for those customers that have enrolled in Code Red. Now, I know legally, if there was a system-wide emergency, I'm able to email all customers that have contact information in our billing system. But for the day-to-day notifications, the customers do have to be enrolled.
What's our current enrollment for Code Red?
Right now, out of the 4,300 accounts, we have just under 1,500 residents.
So that's still pretty low.
Yeah. We rolled out a mailer in the November 20 bill where we sent out information on Code Red and also obtaining contact information updates. I think we received about 10% of the customers, about 5.
In that billing insert do you know if Code Red has like QRC where you could just,
No, but I can obtain one.
yeah, just if we do it again, just to make it easier,
Right.
and you just take a picture of the QRC, it opens up the app, you install it or sign up or whatever, so it might just make it easier.
Yes, if they do have a new feature now, so if we decide to renew because of pricing issues or anything, there's no pricing issues. They have the ability, I can do a mass rollout, text opt-in, so that everyone would get a text and they can choose to opt in or out from their phones. So it makes it a little bit easier because they're seeing it.
Is there any, so when it comes up as a Code Red alert, correct?
Mhm.
And is it, I can't remember, and I have it, but I can't remember. Does it say Gateway Service District, or how do we brand ourselves?
I put our initials, so it's GSCDD alert or notice, and then I put the message and where to go, like the website, or I refer them.
Good. When you're talking to Code Red, can you just ask them if there's any ability to enhance that branding?
Mhm.
So it's, instead of it saying Code Red, which it may just for their own branding purposes, but if there's a way for us to enhance.
Like a subtitle.
Yeah, so it's almost like you white label it a little bit, but I'm just curious if they would allow that or not.
One of the reasons I am trying to obtain quotes and different pricing is because the upgraded billing platform that I'm looking at will automatically include the feature to text, email, call out of the billing system.
Oh, okay.
So that'll make notifications a lot easier. And then eventually, if that works out, then we can eliminate the cost of Code Red and just work directly from our billing system. So that's just one of the things that I'm looking at. No questions on Code Red that I haven't answered, or you have any questions on? Website, I did some website updates. These were mainly for point of references, so that when we are updating Facebook or I am sending an email, just a quick link that I can refer people to. So that those website updates have been completed. Credit card update feature, this is something I mentioned a couple of months ago. When people who are enrolled in credit card tokens, they have the ability to get notifications if their cards are about to expire. We only have about 500 customers who are enrolled in credit card auto pay, but I've decided to go ahead and put this feature on hold. One, I was not aware that there's an additional cost per transaction for that. And two, that has to be, the merchant who handles that has to be approved through our billing software. So that's a much lengthier process than what I initially thought. The annual water quality report, the data from Lee County has been released. So that's going to be included in the May billing. And we're gonna start our lead and copper sampling rollout notifications next month. So by June, July, that should be complete. And then the annual wholesale wastewater true up, that was attached. I was asked to put that in, and that $97,000 credit has been applied. We received the credit in the March bill.
I saw that. I was a little surprised. In fact, I couldn't figure out why the parentheses were around it. Usually it's got plus, plus, plus in front of it. Was
Yeah.
there what did they do to reduce cost on a unit basis that we would have had a credit unless our water usage went up tremendously?
It really wasn't. It's based on their expense on the maintenance side, what they plan to do, and then how much they actually spent.
So they did not have the expenditures they thought they would have.
Correct.
I knew something was fishy. I figured it might be a volume issue.
And we won't adjust our rate because it's going to be temporary. They'll give it to us on the bill, and I'm sure Kenny will find a way to spend the money on capital before we're done.
Did you hear that?
Back to the notifications. I know for utilities, we handle all the notifications. So or I handle the notifications. Kenny tells me whatever projects are going on. So from my standpoint, we typically contact the HOAs. We send out the blast by email ahead of time if, that's available to us. One other area that's not on this management report is an error that I found, a billing error that I found during the March bill. It involved 6 accounts: irrigation, multifamily, master meters. I had incorrectly updated the new codes for these 6 accounts, and there was an additional setting that I missed, and then I didn't catch it until this year. When I went to calculate the bill, the rates didn't change, and apparently that additional setting caused base fees to revert. So I have made those corrections. I've notified the 5-6 communities and have made those adjustments. So going forward, they're aware of what their base fees are.
Irrigation master meters
Right.
for condo units?
Yes. So Champion Greens, Summer Winds, Royal Greens, they've received notice.
Was it a increase in the bill or a decrease?
It was an increase.
Rate case, we went up on the master meter charge
You
on the
remember
base
their
facility
base
charge.
fees were being charged based on meter size.
Yeah.
And we changed it per dwelling unit on this.
For the base?
Right.
What are we talking about? I'm surprised I didn't get a call on this.
It varies because it varies on the number of units between their base fees can, I think.
Well, like Champions Green's got 1 3-inch meter and 88 units in 3 neighborhood associations.
Right. So their bill, I think, went up $500 a bill cycle. So I just had to disclose that. I found that when I audited the bill on this March last week.
Question on the billing. I'm looking at this page, I don't know what page it is, 14.
14.
What's our requirement? Well, 14 on the book, a couple more down, where we show this list of the St. Louis and the others.
Mhm.
What is our requirement, or what does somebody have to do to be there? Go back up, Chris, just a little bit. The other way. Too far.
The bottom.
There.
Right, a little bit.
Get a little bit higher, a little higher.
Stop.
There you go. What is it that initiates a lien? Are we saying that of our 4,700 bill paying customers, we've got 3 that qualify for a lien? Because if it is, that is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Leslie is very aggressive on that too. I think she also gives them every opportunity to pay.
Yeah, typically
these
I
are-
wait 15 days after shut off. If they have not paid, they get paid.
And this is sum and substance of what we've got out there in the way of issues.
Mhm.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yes.
That number
Vicky and
is
I are
very
very
small.
aggressive in obtaining water.
way to go.
Pass
That's when I saw it, I thought, okay, where's the other 2 pages?
And they actually cross-reference real estate transactions when they see if we haven't been notified about a change of account, and they look at it and all of a sudden it's like there's an outstanding on that. It's lien because they know they're selling the house, so they're trying to skirt around it.
Very good.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any final questions? Okay. And then is that it for staff reports, or we got?
Brian, do you have anything to add today?
Only thing I had was an action item was to transfer funds, replace the aerator boxes. We're going to take like $19,000 of that plant replacement program to put in the aerator breaker boxes to address the ones in Stony Brook first that we have safety issues with. We have a quote for Bentley. They will supply the materials and everything for like $23.95 a box. So we like to go ahead and transfer these funds and get this contract with Bentley as soon as possible.
I approve the motion, or make the motion to approve the transfer of funds.
We have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Chris, if you'll call the vote.
Okay. Mr. Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Geppert?
Yes.
Mr. Guy,
Yes.
Mr. Tinkle,
Yes.
and Mrs. Walsh.
Yes.
Okay. And go ahead.
When do you think the sidewalk work on Gateway Greens or Gateway Boulevard is going to start?
In front of your house,
In front of our addition?
June,
June.
from Walden Lakes all the way to Gateway Greens. That'll be June.
It's really gotten bad.
I know. When we had the second and third estimate, pushed Boness back a couple months because they were doing other projects. I met with Boness to get a quote for the Stony Brook section that we just took trees out. So I
Now-
should have that for the next meeting.
You're not patching, you're replacing, correct?
Milled it, and basically you do overlay over top of it.
Okay.
It's blacktop majority of it. So
Because there's several places where you got some elevation issues.
yes, we do.
And Brian, while they're out there, you know, we have some issues further up of the trees that we just removed
Take care of that too.
during the same time period.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm getting 2 quotes, one from Stonebrook Villages to the back entrance of Pelican, from Pelican all the way to Hidden Lakes.
And we're talking about sidewalks?
Yes. Just sidewalks.
Go ahead.
Right, is funding an issue for that second set of
I
sidewalks?
have no funding for that sidewalk. That'll have to go until next year's budget because
But
it's
the-
part of my forecasting. So I'm gonna get these 2 big ones and here's what I asked for.
Just to prepare the people,
Yes.
I heard, I don't remember now where I heard it, but the FPL easement, there is very possibly a restriction on trees. So if we have that 660-foot width ballpark and it's on a skewed angle, which probably is more like about 800 feet.
There is a limitation on how high they can be.
It's not a limitation on tree, it's a limitation on tree height.
That is part of it, correct.
You know
But
what-
I don't think you
know
can, but I thought you cannot plant directly underneath.
If you look on the other side of it on the berm, which is on the east side,
Yeah.
we have stuff there.
Okay.
I highly recommend don't do it.
That's what I was wondering.
Because to me, as you create, if you ever rode your bike underneath there on nice cloudy days, you get static electricity, all kinds of stuff. But they have a 500,000 volt line, a 200,000 volt line, and personally, never hit path.
So if we did anything in the way of vegetation like calusas or something like that,
That you could do.
that
but
you could do
I don't
to,
recommend trees though.
okay. I
I
want to
mean, if
make
you want to
sure,
do closes or something to block things, yeah, we could do that. And that would be a smart move.
because there were some trees in that deal. But,
There, we took 2 out that were
okay,
there.
I started reading and I saw something on it and I thought, wait a minute here.
But
That's a long stretch of
From the-
about 800 feet.
from the
at
back
least.
entrance to Pelican until you clear the FPL easement,
Gotcha. Okay,
I
thank you.
would suggest calusas or something like that, correct, instead
Okay.
of trees.
Good deal.
So Brian, one thing I just want to let you know, so in regarding so just so the board knows, Gateway Elementary has, now starting they want to start charging for parking on their facility for, as long as I can remember, the elementary school has always been an overflow, and there's been an agreement
Oh,
with
you mean for
them
parks?
for parking for use with the leagues. I know that the soccer's been using it for 20 years. And flag, I'm not sure about, but as their numbers increase, have been increasing, they've been talking about leveraging that as well. Reason why that's important is because we don't have, the volume has grown so much, our parking is limited. And so now they want to start charging. I called the school board because I originally thought it was a county initiative. They were just doing it across all the counties. Now they do charge for use of their facilities, but it varies from school to school. So it's Gateway Elementary is their decision to charge for parking is their decision. So I'm going to reach out to the principal and see if they would, go backwards on that, because the problem is it's additional cost. Now we would have to reserve that. It would be within the
No, sir.
district. You sure?
That is strict. You go through Facilitron, and that would be up to whatever entity is over there using
Okay,
it.
I thought it would have to be, the district would have to engage
District
in
is
that.
totally out of that.
Okay, but regardless, I think we have, a large population, about 50% of Gateway residents that leverage that. And a lot of those individuals are going to that school. So it just seems like we've always had an open policy with the elementary school that they can use our facilities. We've never charged them as far as I know. So I'm just letting you, I'm going to reach out to Chris, the principal over there, and see if we can negotiate something. I don't think that's what we should be doing in the interest of creating this partnership, especially as amenable as we have been with the high school coming into play and some other things. So.
I have some.
I thought they had a fence to keep everybody out. How do people park in there if they keep?
Well, they've provided keys.
Oh, they open it up.
So the leagues have keys. They would open the gates
and then close.
And as far as I know, we've never had any issues with.
Well, that's incorrect because you talked to the principal. She will tell you otherwise.
She'll tell you what?
She will tell you otherwise because they've left mess for that janitor on a Monday more than once.
Oh, so what they're saying is that they're changing their mind because it wasn't cleaned up.
But Lee County went with a company called Facilitron. If you wish to rent that after hours, 25 hours, $25 an hour, 3 hour minimum. You want to rent their little soccer field back there, $40 an hour, 3 hour minimum. Yeah. You have to go through this program called Facilitron, which is across the country based. You rent it through them. The county has really nothing to do with it. They manage it, they get paid, and they make sure it's available.
So it's not so much they're doing it for revenue, they're doing it because they don't want the mess.
I think the county did it countywide, because you can look at Fort Myers High School, you can look at Riverdale, you can different schools, they all kind of went to that base.
I think initially, it was a revenue generating opportunity, but the representative from the school board said that they haven't rented anything out.
And I have a few comments on that, quite a few. So I don't know if anybody saw it on Saturday, what that place looked like. I actually got a few phone calls and then I drove out because I was not.
The school property?
The parking lot.
Our parking lot or
yes,
theirs?
ours. So I got a few calls about cars blocking, and then actually double parking on Soccer Drive in addition to parking on the hill. So if you can visualize parking on the hill, then behind that car, a car, and next to another car. So I assume it wasn't that bad until I came over here and I looked at it. So when I say it was, I never ever saw anything like that. I did get some aerial pictures. I just couldn't download them today, but I am going to forward to Chris and have you guys forward to the board, because when I say the amount of cars, it was unspeakable. So I waited and I actually went to the concession stand because I wasn't sure if Mark was going to be there. And to my surprise, there was a line of people over there. Actually, I would say they were grandparents, just looking at the age, complaining about the safety. And one specific gentleman said that the kid actually, because they're little kids, they were running in between cars, and you're driving on Sarka Drive, you cannot see them. Yeah. So he spoke with him, I spoke with Mark, and I did ask him, I said, what happened? And he said it was the worst ever. He did mention to me about the school, and I guess it's not just Gateway Elementary, it's all schools in Lee County. I asked him about the cost, and he told me it was around $3,500 for the season, which, to be honest, I didn't think it was unreasonable if we're looking at safety. But he says he didn't really want to make it an increase and so forth. I asked if he had looked into other options. It didn't seem like he did, so I asked him if he had to reach out to the church across the street. I mean, the church would probably take 10% of the extra cars that were there. And he says he didn't want to do it because he didn't want the kids crossing the road because of safety reason. So I said, okay, then let me tell you about safety reason. I said, that's when you get a volunteer, you get a crossing guard there, a parent, from all the people. But there's even a bigger issue on Soccer Drive. I mean, I wonder, do we have a capacity for, for usage on the whole area over there?
We own this whole complex. Now the road itself, this is Soccer Drive.
Mm-hmm.
There's an easement in favor of the property to the east, so we can't obstruct that easement.
Parking's catch as catch can.
Right, but we can't obstruct that easement, but areas outside the easement area, we could utilize for parking for districts of the
But it has gotten bad, almost to the point, I mean, even when people are parking on this side, even parking up the hill. So I think my point was, I'm going to talk to the school, see if they would be willing to, because safety is a concern, if they would be willing to to come up with a compromise. But if not, I mean, I think that the parking has to be addressed.
I mean, I had a long conversation with Mark too, and I mean, I was saddened that there was not a proactive approach to looking at other options. And when I was told that the safety was an issue for crossing the road, and I'm thinking, you were in the concession stand, you want the safety, go into the other side. So that was another thing. I do want to ask you, I did notice that there's a pedestrian gate right adjacent to the main gate, and that was locked. So I think he says he didn't have a key, and while kids were still going in the street anyways, but I think that pedestrian gate should be open.
Which one?
So.
You're talking over by the school?
It's coming from the school. That's
No,
school
not from
gate.
the school, right here by the gate.
We opened all the locks. The gates back up.
You're talking about, so
Right-
you
right
have the
front.
gate, yeah,
The
the
main
gate
gate.
that closes the road, and then there's a pedestrian gate.
If not, I'll make sure because we leave these gates open all the time.
Yeah,
So if you're
because
talking
he
the
says
pedestrian gate,
he says he didn't have the keys, because this is what happened. So we're looking at the gate, there was one car parked.
So you have to walk around, yeah.
No, one car was parking at the gate area and another park here. So instead of being able to get 3 cars, you could only get 1.
Yeah.
And then kids now had to go into the road to
Yeah.
get into access. So that, and is there any way like they could park maybe between Timberwood, is that what it is? Timberwood, like the FPL easement, but on the right of way, Timberwood to right the entrance of Sucker Drive.
sure they
I
can.
mean,
It's
they
not
could
ours.
do,
It's not ours.
that
It's
is like
FPLE's
a
or the
nice
county.
area if they
Lee County.
plan.
Lee County's road is not ours. They can do what they want on
If
both
they
sides.
plan it accordingly, I mean, they could get a majority of cars there, but it's still not enough.
You mean just Angle Park in the dirt?
Yeah.
There has to be a solution. And I did talk to Mark briefly, and he said, look, I've even looked at staggering the game times to give people time to come out, to go in. But, so I think, there's something has to be done. Because it's gonna, I mean, even flag football this year, has almost 150 more players than they have ever. So the leagues are growing, and we're running out of field space, and definitely the parking is a big issue. So let's just continue to work with the leagues on solutions there. But if the elementary school doesn't back down on the charging, then we're just gonna have to enforce where people can park and cannot park. So they're gonna have to leverage the school parking one way or the other.
But you know what it looks like now, right?
Okay.
So Tony had
Thanks.
Doug, I have one question before Brian leaves when I get a second.
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Brian, I was just curious as what's the status of the concession stand as far as removing that unwanted equipment and non-functioning equipment?
Good news, bad news. Nobody wants it. It's too old. So we've reached out to different people, and we're at the point where you have to take it out. We're going to start that probably next week. We'll just take it out and take it down to Garden Street because we've asked around to different people, even try to get away for free, but the age of it, it's over 10 years old. They won't touch it.
What I would suggest, if you're going to do that, I don't know if the board adopted a resolution to dispose of it as surplus property. And if that's the case, that you indicated that it has no market value.
Correct.
Way under 5,000, it's got barely salvage value, that the board adopt a resolution today, and I can prepare that resolution or at the next board meeting to declare it as surplus and dispose of it in any way the staff feels appropriate.
So we wanted to inventory what we're taking out.
Yeah, we have to track that.
Okay.
Under the statute.
We can do that.
I can work with you.
Okay.
I'll give
Thank you,
that.
Brian.
Yeah.
We're about ready to start hauling it out. There's about 5 or 6 pieces. The only thing we do got to reach out to is the fire suppression, because I'm not touching that. We have to hire somebody to come in and basically dismantle that. That's a
I've
whole
got
nother
a simple
topic.
resolution.
Over the grill? Over the grill?
Over the top of the range, it's got
Yeah,
fire suppression, so that has to be professional, come in and take care of that.
Okay, very good.
We're meeting Wednesday, Tony, so I'll get with you.
Anything else for Brian?
I do have a few things. Well, next to the soccer park, I know we used to have field there and some rocks. Is it empty? Because we could use that for parking.
Where? Here's that, you
Wait,
can open,
I know it gets super wet
That
because I
gate?
see.
Oh, you mean the
yeah,
very back on the dog park?
adjacent to it.
you have a vacant field back there by Kenny's well.
Yeah, but
in
I
the back.
remember having field there.
But I can tell
For a
you
long
this,
time.
you open that up. It's not a perfect road to drive back here. Somebody damages a car.
Is that our property?
Yes,
Yes.
To the right is HOK.
way in the back.
or
That's a
HHA.
lot.
Easton to the north of the, District owns all this. That was the
Yeah,
old
yeah,
RV
yeah,
park site.
Yeah, that was the RV park.
Way in the back.
Yeah.
You can open that fence up and there they go. I mean, that's an option.
I think you may want to improve it somewhat.
Unless they have a Jeep or, you know.
Okay.
I do have a few more things. I do have a few more things to you, Brian, not in relation to the soccer field, but into the lake restoration. On Friday, so we did a walk, Brian, myself, Tetra Tech, and Al, in 83 for the punch list. I was again surprised by the lack of information, and I was very honest with Tetra Tech in regards to planning and then some feedback I gave Brian in regards to execution as well. I think there was a big opportunity there. And I did get the punch list. And in resumes to, this is what I have. However, reach out to Flavia. She was able to gather all the information during the year, and she'll be the better person to give you an actual and more cohesive.
For the punch list?
For the warranty work, yes.
So engineering is telling who to reach out to you for?
Well, and they gave a list. It's a summary of, I mean, to me, it's a summary of a summary, knowing that I have over 400 emails with details. They gave 10 items, and this doesn't even touch it. One big thing is when they're doing this warranty walk, you just kind of walk, but we had so much rock that unless they're walking on every single inch of the rock, there is no way visibly that you can see that as soon as you step on it, it's like a trampoline. But I wanted to see what this warranty walk looked like. And I was surprised to see that. And I was even more surprised when I got the punch list, and then, you know, and the email said something to like, this is what I got, Flavia, let me know if you need anything. But I think you have a good record for the items that are pending. I just didn't think that was.
Every time you do a punch list, there's always three components to the punch list: the owner, the contractor, and the engineer or the architect. Always have three components. It's not in the owner's best interest to play a game to see if I can find out something you don't know and you didn't catch it. That's not the purpose of a punch list. The purpose of the punch list is to share it, get it identified, and give them 30 days to get it fixed. Now, the big issue is that what does our contracts call for on how the punch list and when is the punch list supposed to be done? Because typically it's 30 days in advance of full completion. What does our contract say?
I'll let Tony answer
I don't
that.
know.
I think that's what somebody needs to be looking at to see what are we expecting? Because what we may be expecting on a punch list may not be something that we're having included in the contract.
And in addition to this, I was able, I was trying to separate it with Stephen because I said, while I understand that this area is not a warranty issue, this area was an issue prior of them departing. And because of water level, we were told we're just gonna pile on the rocks to hold it. When we come back for the warranty issue, we'll fix that at once. Well, none of that. Nobody has records of any of that besides me that I'm aware of it.
Okay, what was the contractor at the punch list?
No, it was just Stephen, Brian, Al, and myself.
That's a mistake.
Because
Gotta have a contract.
because I believe there were planning and there were execution. I just want to take the
Who
mistake
schedules that? Who schedules the walkthrough?
I believe it was Tetra Tech that scheduled that. I could be wrong.
Hey, Stephen, are you on?
It typically can be either the
Why am I-
contractor. The
never
contractor
mind.
usually will want to do it for one reason. He wants out.
Here's what
And so
happened
they
with
want
us.
to try to get that 11 month.
We scheduled a walkthrough on 59. And he reached out to Flavia and said, while I'm there, I'll go ahead and do it after that one. But that's schedule and Abby involved because Abby's with Metro and he's a contractor to do work. He's on the East Coast. Once the list was finalized, I'm gonna grab Abby over here and we do another walkthrough with him. He's a contractor.
And are we gonna need to bring divers in too because we subcontracted them, or Abby's gonna be responsible and take care of that part? And I think we brought Matt Tower as well, so it's three.
Abby's responsible ultimately for the whole pond.
Okay.
He's the one that did the original work. Matt Tower came back and did it by other work.
Subcontract.
Yes. for Abby.
Yeah, you've got to deal with Abby.
Abby's the master on it.
That's right.
He's the one we're
You gotta
dealing
deal
with.
with him. And you definitely want to do a punch list with the contractor there, because unless you want to do it twice, that's a waste of time.
And so then I was thinking, all ties into the parking. We have a drone. I don't know if we've been using it. I don't know who's in charge of using it, but I think it would be great benefit. And because that's what I did during the whole entire process. Every month I had a drone footage from that pond. I think it'll be a benefit for the district to take a drone footage prior, maybe a few times during and at the completion, because there's a lot of things that you can kind of see it from up top that you don't necessarily see it, when you even walk in the pond. So I don't know if that would be something that's
I
something.
definitely think we
staff
should
could
be
do
doing it before and after.
I absolutely agree. I mean, it would take, I'll tell you, because it took 15, 20 minutes to do it over there. So that's one thing. And that's just a suggestion, into the, maybe if his staff is going to log it, issues during, because, wet season comes around. So I'm sure the next pond is going to be the same thing. We're not going to fix this now. If, water's too high, we'll come back. Or somebody from the district, not somebody that lives there, not the HOA, needs to log those items. That's my feedback. And then I promise this is the last one for you, and it's gonna be littorals. So this just came right before the meeting. I saw an email from Chris to Jim, and then I response from Jim to Chris. And I wasn't sure if I should deal this with the district manager or with you, but I think partnership with both of you. What I have seen lately is a lot of issues with communication in general. I feel like if we're addressing anything that has related to any of the items that follow under Brian or under Kenny, that Kenny should be included on those emails, all of them, and Brian should be included in all that comes from him and so forth. I see that there's a huge opportunity for us to do that, and creating a clear and concise message across the board. While I appreciated Chris' approach in reaching out to Jim in regards to the littorals, I do believe we have our hands full right now, and littorals is a quiet, somewhat subject. And I really do hope the intent was to just follow up. However, I don't know, like, Chris, did you reach out to every single member of the ponds committee or just Jim?
Just Jim, because he's the one who mentioned the littoral part, what was going on in Silver Lakes, and I told him part of it was a budget issue. And
What Jim are we talking about?
Wazinski. Yeah, and what it was budgeting and the aquagenics contract and not having a line item in there. And I said, well, when we come up to do the budgeting this year, then we'll bring the pond standards forward and break it out into sections and ask the board for funding specifically to implement those requirements in the pond standards for littoral removal and maintenance. And that way there'll be a price tag, because right now it's not in the aquagenics contract, and it'll take additional funds.
So I want to maybe give some clarity into this. When we developed the ponds, and I know Judy had to leave. She actually had an appointment. She came back. When we developed this, a big part of the process that in a concise idea among us was, let's really think through into the end. Is it reasonable? Is it feasible? One thing that Jim was adamant about, that he did not want to add anything to do in implementation. And I thought that when went in hand, you kind of have to design and think about how the implementation is going to take place. And that was one thing, meeting after meeting, like, no, we can add that, it's implementation. So asking him to be a part of something that he didn't want it at that time, I just felt like it just didn't make sense. And I don't think he's an expert on it, to be honest. I think if we're going to ask for feedback in regards to the budget and to how things are going to be done, it should be done for all of them or none. I don't believe, and I know you quoted me that you said, your question was, why have we not implemented the standards? And to be honest, Chris, I want to ask you that question, because I can call out 2 or 3 items that it was really you that said either not to do it or do it. So there was, between staff and even between the board, and I give you the water quality example, it was never done. Then at my first meeting, you said it was going to get done on that Monday, and it's still never done. So a lot of direction that staff has received, residents have received, and this board has received, I think at times is misleading, to say the least. So, you know, I don't think nothing was done. I don't believe, and then Jim responded saying that the standards were implemented on his pond. No, they weren't. The only thing that was implemented was the littoral. The standard as a whole was never implemented on any ponds anywhere. So we're just picking and choosing what parts of it. And I think this board needs to really think, are we going to either hire a professional, which at this point I would agree with that. I think we have to hire a professional and have him revisit. And then we look at it in the budget and to the money and see if it's feasible. But I don't think creating a new committee, I don't think even revising the document, it's something that we want to do. He mentioned that Pelican Preserve, and maybe I'll ask Bob on this, that Pelican Preserve does not pay aquagenics for those extra, or for actually anything, no removals. And we do. I mean, I do question that. So I reached out to Doug. He just sent me the contract with aquagenics with Pelican, and I'm going to see it. What is the difference? Because if they're getting for free, then why are we not?
Well, Flavia, the difference is, I think, is that in the month, our ponds are uniform, first of all. We don't have some that have it and some that don't. They're all uniform. And we maintain the width of the littoral visibility area as the water recedes and then as it, comes back. It's always a moving target. It's never static. And the understanding we have had with aquagenics, I don't think you'll find this stuff spelled out, with dotted I's and crossed T's, but we are paying them to maintain the normal width. And that's established by the monthly reviews. I don't know if that explains it, but that's the only way I can say it. But you're right, we don't pay anything different.
Bob, as a point of clarification, as the low water line drops, you're still maintaining your width at that point. So when you're at the high water mark, you're maintaining.
We don't have that.
But that's not right. Is that what you're saying? So they're maintaining your width regardless of where the water mark is.
Yeah, because as the water drops, the littorals grow up. So when, if it gets low enough, the water level, you could conceivably, we have a pond or two where littorals would cross the entire pond. Well, we don't allow that. They have to maintain the growth level to be no more than this, imaginary 5 to 8 feet width.
Right.
So if you're going from shore to shore, then they're going to make sure that the middle of it maintains littoral free. And then, of course, when the water rises, all that kind of stuff kind of dies out, and and it takes care of itself there.
And is that explicit in your contract?
No, this is the benefit you get by having a monthly walk around with the resident committee. A person has 5 ponds, and he goes around with the provider once a month on his 5 ponds. So the standard shouldn't change as long as he's consistent. We really had a great deal of success with this.
And I wouldn't be opposed to aid more into that area, to aid maybe staff in reporting or so forth. Because the more eyes report, but they're reporting only, not into this is the solution. Because I believe that it needs to come from the experts, not the residents that are walking around. I
have a problem with having someone needing to follow our vendor around each month in order to get them to do their job. I mean, either way.
We really don't do that. It's a participatory process, Doug.
Well,
it's not like we're
what I'm saying is, in Pelican, if you're in your community and you guys are paying for it, okay, that's fine. But the sheer number of ponds that we have under our management, in order for us to adhere to what your governance is in Pelican, there's no way. And honestly, I don't know if then we're holding a resident accountable for performance delivery with our vendors. That's not how we do business.
That should be staff.
So again, we'd have to staff someone to literally just do nothing but walk ponds.
But your problem is if you don't have it in the contract.
Yeah, that's the problem.
You're whistling Dixie. Yeah. You're not gonna be able to do anything.
Yeah. So
well, Ed and Doug, the hammer is not satisfying the residents. The hammer is if the provider doesn't do the service, we get rid of them.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily blame aquagenics on this, because you guys are talking about the maintaining that littoral shelf. But that's not really what all this is about. This is about full removal. And for us to have full removal, that direction does not come from staff or aquagenic. It has to be upon the request of the resident. So it's always going to initiate of the resident's request. staff need a.
Are you talking, Gloria? I mean, Flavia, are you talking that a single home wants it out, like to be, so they can fish?
So they can do whatever they want. So that part of it is the only part that we really talk about. Everything else that's on that standard is really foo-foo. They only care about either food removal or the maintenance. I mean, the whole thing is just about that. So.
Okay, wait 1 second. We have instances of full removal, but the removal is a spray out. It is never to pay and go in and pull it. But we do spray it out, and they're expected to keep that zone littoral free. Takes about 90 days for everything to die off.
And you would not pay for additional spraying. It's maintained all free all the time.
Absolutely. If they need to keep spraying, that's up to them. But we don't expect to see littorals growing.
We don't have anything like that.
Well,
we couldn't afford that.
And the much larger conversation is we have a policy that is not enforced today. And we either need to get it, we got to get to par first, or we can't. I mean, how do you regulate something that's irregular? So, which is going to cost a lot of money.
Well, that's part of what we're going to do.
Yeah, I mean,
We're
we're asking staff to make decisions when we're not saying, okay, as of January 1st of next year, we are going to bring all of our ponds up to standard and then maintain that policy moving forward. Now, in order to do that, I'm just purely hypothetical. I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but in order to do that, it's going to cost X. So in order for us to do that, we have to plan for the next fiscal year in order for that to happen.
This is a rerun of about 14
and
months
that's how,
ago.
and that's what I
And
feel
I said,
like.
what we had to do last year is to have 2 bids. The first bid is to get it compliant. The second bid is to maintain it. And we didn't do that. We didn't do that.
Yeah.
So that's what we need to do next time. And the only way to do that is you got to write a specification that says that.
Yeah.
And then
Which
you got to be willing to fund it.
And
that's when the rubber meets the road.
And then what you mean about the specification is the standards that they have to go by and know what's expected of them. And that's what I have a problem. I don't think that one we have, because it was not adhered to, it's good enough, or it's clear enough, or it's the right one for us.
I think the pond standards we have, that somebody that is knowledgeable in the business can write that into a specification that would give us enough to do the first, let's say, first run. See what it looks like. Then you might want to tweak it, because I think you're going to want to tweak it after you see what the price tag is.
Yeah. Well, I can't hold staff faulty for selective enforcement if we have not put a stake in the ground and said, okay, at this point, we're going to follow our policies, or we need to amend them to what we can manage to.
And I guess that's what I asked the last 3 meetings. Either we abolish, we amend it, or we have to do something.
Well, the big thing is that to get somebody in to take the standard as we had it written and as we approved it, and simply convert it to a specification or a bid document. So that we see what we get.
I do have options, because I was going to have Walbrook do that. But there's another company down in Naples that does the same thing. They look at water quality and they deal with that aspect as well. If you want, I can reach out.
Does MRI not do that? Does MRI?
I can check. There's different companies, but no.
I was just curious. They do a lot of stuff. I'm not sure what all.
You actually got to get a professional PE engineer.
Okay.
And you got to get people
Once
who do
somebody knows
water
what they're
quality and
doing.
everything.
Yeah. Well, I think we should be doing that. And as we're going through budget season, we've got some leeway. I think that's one of the things we're gonna have to take a look at, and it's gonna cost.
Your biggest problem is getting it written. It's not getting it written. It's getting it out, because we aren't at a deal to where we're ready to take bids. We just took bids. So the issue is, do we want to go out and entertain an addendum? Which is what I think is the
addendum and termination for convenience in our contract.
30 days.
Yeah. So I mean, if anything, we would terminate the contract and then rebid.
We'll double check that.
Well, the first thing I would do is get the spec and take it to our current vendor and see what the dollar value of his version of the addendum is going to cost. Then we'll know where we're at.
Sure.
We'll know real quick where we're at. He'll come back.
Ed, could we, as another approach to this, instead of trying to eat the whole apple at one time, do a pilot of 2 or 3 ponds only that are the problem, the biggest problems.
Well, and
I would also,
and what I would say to that too, Bob, is we could say we have a 3-year plan to bring ourselves up to, and this is just an option, up to our standards. And we would go through our pond standard and basically cut it into pieces. So our phase one implementation would be, we're going to address littorals. Phase two would be, we're going to address whatever. So by 2023, we would be at complete compliance to our policies, and that might be more palatable in our current environment, unless we don't feel like that would solve our problem or create more issues. But we got to have some options, Brian. I would just say, I would look at it from that approach on, here's if we do it all at once, here's if we phase it, and if we phase it, this is where we think the most critical issues are and what that would cost. And here's the plan if we basically rewrite the pond standard to what we can maintain today, which is probably not much.
Out of the 80 ponds, you only got 2 subdivisions. That's driving the bus.
Okay. Yeah.
Out of 80 ponds, most of them are the 10 over here and 2 over there.
Yeah. Okay.
And the Hampton Park was taken care of. Their littoral bands were thinned with some of that money that was appropriated. It's just some of those line items with the water quality sampling and maintaining need additional funding. And that's what we talk about when we go into waterway management at the budget. Here's each item, here's the page, here's what we need, and we can put it out to bid. But it's pretty simple.
We did Hampton. We spent probably almost $100,000 in Hampton. And now it's aquagenics is keeping those littorals removed constantly.
And what about the
Shelf?
Yeah, the shelf.
We basically took the areas that people complained. We narrowed that shelf. Either we got rid of it, or is it in front of them, or they narrowed the shelf down.
Okay.
But like Mr. Geppert says, that moves. It's a moving target by the way your water level. Hampton, what we're getting now is people say, hey, they came back up, so we send them back to spray them out again. Silver Lakes, we went in there, and to be honest with you, there's a couple ponds in there we shouldn't be spraying. They're on the erosion list to be addressed. And part of that document says you don't go in here and spray out things. We already got erosion problems. We have. Now we got more erosion problems. It's a never ending battle. I mean, the littorals are there for a reason, folks. It actually helps stop the erosion, but we keep taking them out everywhere and you don't have any, you're gonna have more erosion. But my recommendation was for staff and the board and everybody was to hire a professional engineer to come away and evaluate us and give us what we really need and where we want to go water quality wise and everything else. Because what we find out, let's say you don't need littorals on Silver Lakes, but the ones down at Power Easement can help offset that because your water quality, since everything flows toward basically I-75, there's ways to do that. The last thing I ever want is the water quality to go the wrong direction. We don't have enough money if it did. And Chris can contest to that.
Yeah, we talked about that because with Governor DeSantis and a lot of the pollution and nitrogen issues and the red tide, it's only a matter of time before we're in that impaired water body. And if we go past that tipping point, we could never afford to fix it.
They're going to be so long messing around with what the Midwest did 50 years ago and getting rid of the septic tanks. There's where your problems are. There's septic tanks dumping. I had a boat, went up and down that river, septic tanks dumping straight out into the river. Until they address that, they're just whistling Dixie. Ain't gonna work.
And Cape Coral's spending $80 million.
And Cape Coral,
Yep.
Cape Coral is a good example. That's why these people are paying $26,000 fees for water and sewer.
Lehigh,
I mean,
All right,
the
let's,
days of septic tanks are over.
That's all I have.
Anything else for Brian? Okay, thanks, Brian.
thank you.
Okay, anything else for staff before we move to action items?
Yeah, we just have one more action item, and this is a joint project agreement for the roundabout at Griffin. It is de facto the same agreement that was signed for Commerce Lakes. The county will be bidding the project. For us, we will be part of that, and it just spells out the roles that each party plays. And there was no significant changes from the first one.
There are
Nothing significant, no, sir.
No, I reviewed it. There were a couple of tweaks here and there just to make it consistent and just some grammatical and typographical errors, but the form of the document and the substance are in good shape for execution by the board. I think I sent it back to them after they had like 2 typos, I think is all they caught, the whole document after I made my revisions.
motion to approve the joint project agreement for Griffin Drive roundabout and have the chair execute the agreement.
And I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Chris, your
Sure,
call.
call the vote. Mr. Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Geppert?
Yes.
Mr. Guy?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Walsh? Motion passes 5-0 to approve the JPA.
Okay, any items to pull for the consent agenda? 5A? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I second. Okay.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Question,
Any opposed?
Question? Mr. Guy has a question.
Question?
just on the, we voted, what are we voting on the consent agenda?
Financial
Yes,
report.
the financial report.
I have an item that I'd like to call your attention to, because I went through the financial report. On agenda page 54.
Okay, Bill?
On, under utility services, the first item is irrigation system high service pumps, $840,000 annual budget. If you go down about 8 items, you'll see irrigation system high service pumps, $45,000. I can't for the life of me remember what's the difference between those two, and I was hoping that either somebody could help me or we could talk about it at this meeting or a later meeting when Steven's around.
And I could shed a little light on that because the $45,000 was really for a spare pump to have on hand because of the lead time. If we lost one of our pumps, we wouldn't have the capacity. That original high service pumps was upgrading the whole station out there with new electrical service, new variable frequency drives, new instrumentation, and new SCADA controls.
We probably ought to put standby
Right.
in parentheses.
Can we adjust the nomenclature a little bit so that we know exactly what we're budgeting for and what we're being charged for?
Yes, sir, we can put that on there, and I'll have to put a plug in because originally some of the estimate to do that work was that high, but a lot of it was accomplished in-house with direct purchase of the materials and direct labor, and give kudos to Billy Shaw to being out there and getting that work done and doing the wiring and putting those panels in and hooking them up because and working with the electrical engineer because it saved a huge amount of money.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. So I'll just go back and call the vote again for clarity. So all in favor to approve item 5A, financial report for February 28, 2021, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Yeah, motion passes. Chris, what's any items for future board business?
Well, I listed that, and then we do have that financial rate study, which is tied into those capital projects. We'll be discussing that bond validation and update on the assessment methodology report. But otherwise, we're getting ready to move full speed into the budget season. When I've been out meeting with the HOAs, I've been providing them copies of the budget. I've been providing them information on our key items and looking at the street lights, a lot of conversation about this roads, the irrigation system. And I've basically been telling them that my job is preserve property values, and community's kind of at a tipping point because we have some big scale items, and talked about the cost of the trees. And one lady said, well, you can add $50 to my assessment to keep the trees to put in root barriers. And I've actually gotten a lot of very positive, please spend the money, because a couple $100 a year compared to my housing value. I'll go for my housing value and the look at the neighborhood and to keep the community looking good. So gotten a lot of positive feedback, but I said the board needs to hear from you, not from me, and attend the hearings, chat in, send emails to your board members, how you feel about this.
Okay, thanks. Supervisor comments. I'll start with those on the phone. So Supervisor Geppert.
No comments this week.
Supervisor Guy.
I have nothing.
Supervisor Tinkle.
Yeah, I have a couple of ones. Where are we at on getting a capital reserve consultant, or interview somebody or talk to somebody and start seeing where we are on capital reserve.
Well, we don't have the money in the budget. We were going to include that to put in the budget. We can get started a little sooner. And I think that would be an excellent question to pose to Raftellus, the financial consultant, because they are a US-wide firm. They do everything from commercial banking on that side of it to utility. So for just some general information and education, I think that'd be a great place to start and get some recommendations for them. And they would be very upfront, not just to use them, but just to point out what you need to be looking at, because you do have a considerable amount of assets, but where the money is too is utilities and roads.
Correct. Second one is following up on what Rod Senior said earlier. I totally agree. I don't want to let that north end set and linger. I'd like to take and suggest that, Chris, get a hold of Al O'Donnell and see if he's the one that used to work with the county. He's the one that did the oak or the, oh, good God.
Palm trees.
The palm trees renovation up on Gateway Boulevard at Stony Brook. So he knows the community and he knows this very well, especially as it relates to roads. Get him as a consultant that would work with a landscape architect to come up with a plan immediately for that north end, but also start talking about what we're going to do for the rest of the community, such as to start the development of a phase project. This isn't going to happen overnight. And as Rod said, we cannot make the same mistake that we did the last time of bringing in a guy that's got visions of this place being Taj Mahal and spend $2.5 million for landscaping. That dog isn't going to hunt. We need somebody that's got some common sense and knows what a dollar bill is. And mentioned a name to me that he can mention it to you also, of a person that smaller landscape firm knows this type of stuff for a community like ours and has some pretty good ideas. And I think a litmus test would be that first 3,000 feet, whatever it is up there, to look at from entrance to Stony Brook to just south of or just north of Hidden Links entrance.
Yes, sir. And I think
See what a plan looks like.
I'd have to say that when you start looking at even as the lower end, if you phase the construction cost, hiring a professional, you're looking at CCNA.
Well, that's always the issue. And then to the extent that you don't top the CCNA threshold for study activity, that's if it's a planning or studying activity.
Which is how much?
I think it's 35,000. Let me double check.
I'm not envisioning something that's going to be spending over $35,000.
And along those lines, and I mentioned to Rod Senior, I'm not the policymaker, but my other districts, Al O'Donnell has done some landscape work in roadways, Lely Resort and Pelican Marsh recently. And there's a landscape architectural firm that those districts retain to do that work. Well-known.
Would that be Coastal by chance?
No, it's another firm, but
Okay.
El's worked with them before. It's Ellie Getz or Ellen Getz. You can look at her website and see, but El's worked with her before. She's worked with him before too. So.
But I think we need to get it.
As long as we're under the threshold, and that's the key.
It would be nice for us to have somebody that's a consultant on our side to help us and assist us in evaluating and or determining a good landscape firm that'll come in that knows what our vision is. To take and recreate Griffin Drive to make it a Gateway Boulevard just isn't going to happen. No way. We haven't got that kind of money. But there can be some other things we would look at, which would include refreshing the entrances to maybe spruce them up a little.
Well, yeah, if the planning study is for like 35,000, planning or study activity.
So.
Well, I think you also have to consider if we do get that land behind the sidewalk from 82, and we will have hopefully we'll have where the emergency road is going to be, we'll have all that, but where the landfill is, I think we're looking to get that that plot of land.
Wait. What's this? What land?
FPL easement on the landfill.
Oh, you mean that part that we've always been talking about, the squares up, but not the part that goes all the way up to Stony Brook.
So I thought you were talking about getting
Yeah, right now, we're looking at the FPL easement land, that bare open stretch that you can look right into the backside of the.
He's not
Prado.
talking about along the sidewalk.
Okay, I thought you had mentioned, on the side of,
West side.
on the west side.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna get that.
Because-
They're not gonna give us that.
So, but they are doing something over there. Are they doing something to the swell behind? It looks like they've cleared some of that land back there. Okay.
They may be doing it for drainage, but.
Well, so, and my point is, that's what really looks bad. I mean, if you don't have a tree as a distraction, you look straight through it. And
Cow
that's,
fence.
that,
To me, I totally agree with you, but you're still gonna see, no matter if you put calusas and let it go 18 feet high, you're still gonna see that it's a mess over there, but they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't want you to see the mess on the other side of that. That's the problem.
right, okay. What else got it?
That's it.
That's it. Flavia?
You,
Oh, no, I'm fine.
we may have a speaker, so you want to speak? No, okay. Just going by what Tony said.
He's here to direct
Oh, yeah, that's him.
traffic for the soccer game.
Yeah, exactly. We're just a little late, yeah. Just follow up on two things. Chris, you say you were going to reach out to Dana Hume with Johnson Engineer in regards to the no parking, no standing signs by the school for Griffin. Remember, we needed a study, I guess. You have mentioned that if we were going to put one there, we may need a study. I haven't followed up with them because I was just.
No, and that's county right away up there. So the school board, you were mentioning putting signs in the county right away around so people don't pull up and park on either side of the school. And Hampton Park has that big concern right now of people pulling in their back driveway. Their back entrance and blocking that. They're actually trying to move it out. I have had some experience with some of the other subdivisions on Griffin Drive. And you have to request the no parking signs, and then they might come out and enforce it if people park. But that would strictly be a request to the county because that is county right away up there.
But the signage, so that was the part that I guess we need to research. The existing signage on Griffin is our responsibility. Are we saying that because it's a new sign, it's going to be the county's responsibility?
Yes, in fact, good example is by the charter school. All the signs, no parking. I think the county saw there was too much damage going on to the right of way and the swale area.
Our only responsibility relative to signage on the agreement was what the look of the signage is. If we wanted to pay for the upgrade, upscale, we do it. Otherwise, they give us the steel post.
And Lee County would have to approve it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Lee County's good, yeah.
But again, I think the pitch to them might be the same as with the charter school, that the road is being adversely affected of those signs.
What you can come in from Daniels, you can already get a flavor from Daniels on Gateway Boulevard, the blending of the signs, and they look like crap. These old steel posts like you see over in Lehigh, no way in the world. We need to get rid of those things. And the county has come in after they took over and put in signs like places where they think they need to be. And I don't know that they ever came to us. If they did, we should have brought it up and consulted with us as, hey, you need to go to Likens or whoever and get a new sign with the new MUTCD compliant and the green fluted deal and all that. They've never come to us. They just went and stuck them up and it looks horrible. I mean, the look in the community has gone downhill.
So maybe I guess what I'm asking is proactive approach from the board, because I remember for the charter school, I remember being at that meeting, I think we drafted a letter to the county asking them to do that.
Yes.
So I would like a proactive approach from the board and either have the same letter sent for this one here and in regards to those signs. I agree with Ed in regards to the signs, they don't look great. However, every week is 2 or 3 signs down, or 2 signs down, like the roundabout. I mean, I feel like student drivers, they're just learning over there. Every other day there's a sign down, but they're pretty fast. The next day they're up. So if we could do that same letter to the county, that would be a good thing. The only other thing is kind of just clear message from the board. Are we looking to create right now a landscape committee to aid in any of those items? Because I think there is also them different ideas. And I think we need to be clear to staff so they can relay the message to residents, because we have residents reaching out to us.
Here's what my stance on that would be, is I would like to, I think we should engage a professional to start with some conceptual ideas. And then we would have, I don't know if I'd even call it a committee, maybe maybe it's a steering committee, where we can say, hey, here's some potential plans. What do these seem acceptable, or what poke holes in it, or whatever. To Rod Senior's point, I think it would be difficult to have a committee tell us what they'd like to see if there's no expertise in that group. So I think
agree.
the right way to do it is we dictate, what the options could be, and then we let this community advisory board or whatever steering committee say, yes, we think this option might be better, or some points of consideration, or it's X, Y, and Z. But I think if we start from scratch, we're going to go in circles.
So as of right now, I want to make sure it's clear that we're not doing that. And I think that's the
We
information.
will, but we're not there yet.
Not there yet. And that information needs to go out to residents so they know that's not the time for it.
I think the message is we want to obtain as much input as possible. And you don't need a committee in order to, if you have some ideas, to either come and speak during a meeting or reach out to staff with what your concerns are. If you would like to have a more practical approach and speak on behalf of, the much larger group, then I think that's where the committee would come in. But that committee needs to be acting in the best interest of Gateway. And they need to be, there can't be any hidden agendas, which we don't, it's fine if they do, but it's not going to help us move forward.
Well,
You answered my question. We're not having one right now.
Well, the other one is if you would
Short summary.
if you would create a working group for it to be effective community-wide, then it needs to have community-wide interest. Having 5 people on it, all from the same community or 2 communities.
Right, yeah.
It's not.
I think we're all saying the same.
And Mr.
Okay.
Tinkle, how about, you could have preliminary products put together by the landscape architect and have a community-wide charrette where people come in and walk around and see and just comment.
You can drive the golf cart.
Yeah.
No updated plans, Brian, after the 2008 one? Because I know
The last one,
the last one. Okay, that's it. I'm good.
you want to reach out, we can reach out to different architects, look at another one. You want to do that.
Well, I don't think we need to recreate the wheel, but I think we need more of a consultant at this point. Someone to come in and say, hey, and if we can work with Al, or if he could give us some recommendations. Because I think the first things first is we need to replace that area and keep it in line with our future style, whatever that guide is. And I think we could get there relatively quickly.
Yeah, give us what they are.
It may not be,
Well, you're up there in that area and it's pretty well confined of what you got to work in and what you got to work with. So that one to me would be a real good one to go in and start with. Yeah.
You've got to be cautious. What went in those roundabouts, if the county's going to do the other 2.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Landscaping they put in that roundabout down here, it's going to be the same.
yeah, we're not talking about touching the roundabout at this point. You're talking about,
I'm saying if you want to uniform view.
Yeah.
When somebody comes out and look at it, we got to take them down and show them. That's what's going to be the 2 roundabouts as well.
You think that have we seen any plan for the roundabouts for the landscaping? I haven't seen anything.
I think they're supposed to engage us.
Told me it's going to be like it is down there.
I can't hear the speaker, Doug.
What the issue was, Bob, is that, go ahead, Brian.
The gentleman at the county, we have a meeting every other week at the roundabout. He's from Lee County, came out and he basically said the area or the type of vegetation's going in will be pretty much what they put down here in front of the school.
Well, I know when they were presenting to us, they said that they would be asking for our input.
Yeah.
I recall that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
If you want something in writing, I can.
Yeah,
next
we need to
meeting,
find
I'll
out
see if I
about
can
that
track you
because
down.
I haven't been down there for a while, but now I'm gonna go look.
Because they did rock
Because
it.
there's really nothing.
If it's what I would
There's
guess it's
nothing.
gonna
There's
look
nothing.
like, it's nothing.
It's nothing.
Now that's not acceptable.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for all their input today.
Or concrete.
It is 5:19 and I will call the meeting adjourned.
Thank you.